Hey, what's up, everybody? How's it going? Tech with KG here. I am going to be joined by Ninjician AV and Keep It Classy Tech a little bit later in the show. How's everybody doing today? Let me know if my audio sucks or if you can't hear it. I need to know that. I'm gonna check it myself here in a little bit, so we'll make sure that the audio is good to go. Hey, everybody, how's it going? David, good to see you again. Everybody, guys. Hey, Sonny, what's up? Evan G. You lost an opportunity to buy a 77-inch G1 for 3,700 after tax. That's crazy. That's a good deal. I'd be a little upset about that as well. My audio is an unstoppable force. All right, sweet. That's good to know. That's good to go. All right. So how's everybody doing today? We're gonna take some time to let some people roll in. Like I said, Keep It Classy Tech's gonna join us a little bit later. Ninjician AV. We're gonna answer some questions, but in the meantime, I will answer any early questions that are here, and just gonna kind of talk about like what's going on with TVs today. And honestly, not a whole lot has changed from week to week, but we're still stuck in the same situation where we're wondering if we should be waiting for these other TVs. And I don't know how much it is worth waiting for, but I think maybe Black Friday just around the corner. Waiting for that's not too bad of an idea at this point. I see TVs fluctuating in price a little bit. One thing I want to call out is any military people in here. If there's any military people in here, you definitely got some good TV deals out there for military people. So if you are in the military, yeah, definitely let me know because there is some good prices out there. Ordered my 77-inch G1 for 3,600. Benny, nice. That is awesome. Good price. Good price. Brad, what's up, nerds? What's up, man? How are you doing? Good to see you again, Brad. X95J is out already. Yes, it is. I saw on the PX website that it's on there. It looks like it's starting to roll out to other places as well. It looks like it is only the 75-inch right now. So, yeah, man, 3,600 is a good deal for the G1. I can't believe that is the price for it. At that price, it's hard to go against because you're getting that 5-year warranty with it included from LG. So any burn-in or any worries that you have, they're all gone. So I saw a similar deal at the PX. Like I said, if you're military or ex-military or a veteran, things like that, you definitely have more options in terms of that. And it's tax-free from that website as well. Or if you just go into the store itself, that's not a bad deal. Do I have any preferred HDMI 2.1 cables or any from Amazon will do? Pretty much the cable that I prefer is the only real like HDMI 2.1 cable I've tested. And honestly, this is the only cable I've tested from HDMI 2.1, and that's the Rui Pro. So I can't really speak on any other cables, but I've used the Rui Pro myself. I do have a relationship with them. They sent me some cables to try out, and I like them. I think they work, and as long as they work, that's kind of what is good to go with that. In terms of HDMI 2.1 cables, the only thing you want to make sure is that it says ultra high speed on the label. And that way you know it is HDMI 2.1 no matter what it is. So that's good. Okay, yeah, my audio does sound pretty good. I listened to it just now. All right, that's good. Sometimes the audio is just not matching up, or FOMO's too loud, and I'm too low, or Classy's too loud and I'm too low. So we'll see when Classy and Ninjician gets here, how that audio lines up. But does the 77 A80J give the impression of being noticeably brighter than smaller sizes? This will be my first TV over 55 inches. In terms of the brightness, I'll say that it was pretty similar to the C1. On a larger window, the C1 got a little bit brighter. And on the smaller windows, the A80J was brighter. So they're really similar. So if you're used to an OLED, The brightness will be about the same. They're a little bit brighter this year, the new OLEDs. The C1 is slightly brighter than the C10. It's not too noticeable though, so brightness is still there. In terms of being brighter than an LCD, it's definitely not. So, but it's not dim. So if you get the impression that OLED is dim, I guarantee you, like if you've seen one in person, you wouldn't think it was dim, because if you're in the right environment with it, then the brightness perception will be like, you'll think that's a bright TV. And the thumbnail that I have for this is OLED the only choice? And we're going to talk about that later with Classy and Ninjician AV. And it really was a thumbnail kind of designed to kind of bring you into this conversation of, is, you know, OLED the right choice for everybody? And it's technically not the right choice. And you're probably wondering, why does everybody recommend OLED? Is it seem like everybody's pro OLED and nobody likes LCD? And I think what the case is just that OLED is technically just a better technology. It has a lot of stuff going for it in the right environment. So in a dark room, OLED is just unbeatable, and there's no denying that. It's just when you put it next to an LCD in a brighter room, you start to see it can have some flaws. But it's really just going to come down to your picture preference with that. And it's really hard, because I think that personally, it just depends on your environment. And I have an LCD behind me. I bought this just because I wanted something bright, and it was just what I was feeling at the time. That said, I'm still going to go with an OLED later on, and it's just going to depend on how the picture quality is overall. And the differences between this Q90T and the C7 that I had, picture quality wise, I thought it was about the same, honestly. So definitely going to be times where the OLED wins out. But yeah, and we're definitely going to wait to discuss that whole topic. But I just wanted to touch on it really quickly and kind of give you sort of my perspective on it. But there's a lot of LCD TVs out there that are lackluster, for sure. And people buying in this market under $1,000, you'll notice a lot of the TVs are going to be spec'd very much the same, or they're just going to lack those features. You're not going to have a 120 hertz panel. It's going to be a 60 hertz panel, things like that. All right, let's get into some questions, because I see a couple here. The static dimming for video games and watching NFL games is what worries me. You know, yeah, that actually does kind of worry me a little bit too with the Sony TVs, because as much as I was testing it, I didn't notice a huge drop off in brightness. But when I did have it next to the C1, if I had logo dimming off on the C1, it was noticeably brighter after a while. That said, the amount it dims is very gradual, and it's not going to be something you notice unless you're just like really paying attention to it, because it's not a sudden drop off. It doesn't go from like 100 to 50. It goes from like 100 to like 95 to like 85 and 80, and it slowly dips. So it's gradual and not sudden. So it's not going to be like 100% brightness and then boom, 50. So it's really not going to be noticeable for a lot of people. Let's see. Still waiting to see the X95J and the TCL 8K. Yeah, me too. I'm less excited for 8K TCL just because 8K hasn't really done much for me. It's like no reason to get it other than maybe the specs on the TV. And at that point, like the TV is so expensive compared to the other flagships out there. I don't see a reason to get the 8K TCL. There's like, you're going to really have to convince me with the picture quality, and just the smart interface is pretty basic. It's the Roku, but some people do like the Roku. So the menu system is not as good as the other TVs. thoughts on the differences between the 77-inch A80J and the A90J using the same glossy Evo panel? Are there any? Yeah, there are. Let's see. Brightness is a big difference, and you'll notice that in movies with bright highlights, the A90J can just get way brighter, and it is pretty noticeable when it is side by side. And if you ever took the look at my A80J versus A90J video, you can definitely see the brightness differences, and it was more noticeable in person. Instances where ABL got triggered, which is kind of rare, but there is instances where I can get it to trigger, then you will not see that as much or at all on the A90J. Actually, I really rarely saw the ABL kick in on the A90J. And don't get ABL confused with this image retention prevention system that is dimming the system down because it doesn't have the logo Luminance. Because a lot of people are going to get this confused. There is two different technologies here. ABL is an automatic brightness limiter, and that's going to happen when there are bright objects on the screen. The logo luminance reduction feature in the LG is different. That's when there's static logos on the field, on the TV that you're watching. So if it's a sports game, if you have those scoreboards up, if you're playing a sports game, the scoreboards are up. If you're playing like Fortnite or any other first-person shooter, you have the HUD. So that's what's causing the dimming for the Sony, because Sony doesn't have that. But ABL is a different thing, and that's in every OLED TV. Every OLED TV has ABL, and a lot of people don't think it's a big deal. I'm on the other side of that. I think that when you see ABL, it is kind of like, there's my downside. It's like when you see dirty screen effect with an LCD. In my opinion, that's where you go, oh, okay, there's the downside with the LCD. So both TVs have their downsides. Went to Best Buy and they had the A80J and the A90J side by side on top of each other. It's really cool. That's a good setup. My Best Buy doesn't have that yet. Keep It Classy Tech said he's on his way. Yeah, he's stuck in traffic right now. No rush, no rush. We'll be here for a while just talking. Zeskit 2.1 cables are great. I haven't tried them yet. I have heard they're pretty good though. Let's see. Are you guys excited for the NFL? I'm so excited. I've been thinking about it like all week long, as I can't wait. I watched the preseason game yesterday. Really boring, but that's just kind of how the first preseason game is. So I don't know. I'm just excited to see who wins this quarterback battle, man. And I know I get a lot of stuff in chat about the Broncos all the time, but hey, go Broncos. And it's definitely going to be an awesome quarterback battle, and may the best man win. I can't wait. Are you guys excited? Are you guys interested in the Fantasy Football League? I think I'm going to run one for this channel, and then I think Be the Installer is going to run one, and I'm going to try to join it because I definitely want to smash those guys in some fantasy football. Teddy is going to win. All right. That's an interesting observation. I'm hearing he's looking good. I honestly am a Drew Lock fan, but if Teddy wins, I'm not going to be disappointed. So definitely pulling for the young kid, though. Even though they're both kind of young, though. Teddy's not, like, super old or anything. Can't wait, even though my Eagles are going to stink this year. I don't know. Jalen Hurts doesn't look too bad. Wait, are Sony OLEDs not good for NFL games? They're definitely good for NFL games. The only problem is that maybe over time you will see this dimming with the TV. The chances of you actually really noticing this are pretty low, though, honestly. Like I said, it's not gradual. I mean, it's not instant. It's gradual. So I like played around with sports games on the A80J and the A90J. I watched a couple of sports games, and honest to God, I like rarely saw it. I didn't even notice it. So you really have to be like tracking it with a meter or having it side by side next to a C1 or something to really notice it. What do you think of the semi-gloss screen on the A80J versus the full screen gloss on the A90J? I think that there's downsides to it, but there's also an upside to it that not too many people talk about is it actually does a really good job of eliminating reflections. But the downside, I guess, would be if it's like a sunny day or you just have like a brighter room, then maybe your contrast is a little bit off. I think Vincent Tio actually mentioned this, and I've mentioned this before as well, is just there is definitely a cause for concern in a brighter room, but it's really got to be a super bright room for you to get annoyed by this semi-gloss. To me, it's not really a huge difference for most people, though. I don't think there's a huge viewing difference, especially in a dark room. I don't see any difference. Nobody shows sports games on OLED. My video, I showed a bunch of sports games on the OLED. Are you talking about like actual sports? Because actual sports, that's harder to show. I definitely can't show real sports because every time I've tried to show real sports, I've gotten a demonetization warning, and then like, yeah, it's pretty bad. So that's why we don't have a lot of sports content. We love sports. I love sports. I can't speak for everybody actually, because I know Classy doesn't watch sports at all, but I like sports, and I think that that's a huge thing for me when I'm buying a TV because I'm thinking about that right now. Is like, all right, I will be watching a ton of NFL this season. Am I gonna just stick with an LCD or do I want to go with OLED? And honestly, I watched the NFL on my Q90T last season. It's super bright. It's really nice. But the only thing is with the sports content, it's not great quality. You know, you're not gonna get the best quality. So like if you're just watching TV for NFL quality games, chances are you really don't need a super expensive TV. Like you would probably be good with just like a 800 nit TV or something like that. Something middle of the line. You'd probably be fine with it. As long as it has decent motion, I think you would be good to go if that's all you watch. Now it's just like chances are that's not all you watch, but some people that is all they watch. So for sports, like I don't recommend buying a super expensive TV if you don't have to. It is benefit to be able to watch like Netflix and stuff though. Let's see. So the image quality is the same on the Sony gloss and semi-gloss. Yeah, 100%. I would say that most of the time the image quality between the A80J and the A90J were similar. So yeah, I don't think the gloss or the semi-gloss really matters that much for most people in regular viewing conditions. So which TV is brighter for video games and watching TV? The LG G165 or the A90J 65? So I've never seen the G1 personally, but I've seen the C1 and I've seen the A90J. And I think that for video games and watching TV, the brighter TV is the A90J. With the exception, like I said, I haven't seen the G1, so I can't really speak on the G1. But I do think that the A90J would probably be brighter just because it does get brighter in those highlights, brighter than any OLED on the market right now. So with the XR processor and what it does, the A90J is probably the one to beat in terms of brightness. But then you do have that lack of logo luminance reduction on the A90J, so it will dim down the screen, say if you're playing a sports game or any game with like a static HUD. So for sports and watching or playing video games, the bet is like right now I think would be on an LG TV. If you had to make me pick right now, that's what I would say. Especially when you factor in the Dolby Vision stuff, man. With gaming, who knows where that's gonna go, but early reports on it's pretty exciting. So is the sound on the A80J really that much better than the C1? I'll be mounting it. So if you're mounting it, yes, it is way better than the C1 if you are mounting it, because the sound is actually benefiting from the stand on the C1, and that's kind of what it's engineered to do, is it's shooting down into the stand and kind of scooping up. So losing the stand with the C1 is going to actually make your audio quality worse than it would be on the A80J. With the A80J, it's just designed to either be mounted or on a stand. Now you could set it to be mounted in the settings for the LG, but it's not going to sound as good as it would be with the stand, because the stand actually helps with the audio. So yep, Brad kind of explained it to a really good way. Let's see. So everybody's thoughts on TV warranty. My thoughts personally is I never get it. Even OLED, I never get it. I guess it just depends on the kind of person you are. Do you want to take risks with that kind of stuff? Because I've actually never dealt with anything with a warranty, but I'm sure if I have, then maybe that would make me want to get a warranty. So it's probably based on your past experiences and how comfortable do you feel with that sort of situation. That's tough, but I'd say for most TVs, if it's fine in the first 90 days or 45 days or whatever your return policy is, it's probably going to be good for 5 years. So that's kind of my experience with owning TVs over the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years. Let's see. Theo Williams said they're still putting games out in 720p 60. They are. Yeah. I see it a lot, actually. And, you know, a lot of the indie games are doing it. Of course, the Nintendo Switch is doing it. So, yeah, it all depends on what the developers can get. And if they're targeting 60, sometimes they have to drop the game down to 720p to get, like, anything quality-wise without the drops in frame rate. So, let's see. Not a pro gamer, just a heavy gamer. It may enable me to go Sony. I don't have any quick twitch left in my... I'm old. Yeah. I feel that. I used to be really good at Counter-Strike. And I bet you now if you put me on Counter-Strike, I would not be as good. Flo says, hopefully Big Ben wins one more championship before he retires. Go Steelers. I don't know. Maybe. They looked okay yesterday. I like Najee Harris. So we'll see. I'm not allowed to root for the Steelers, though. They have a big rivalry with the Broncos going way back. Man, kind of brings back painful memories. Let's see. IRL Hdr. What did you think of the semi-gloss screen on the A80J versus the full gloss screen on the A90J? Oh, wait. I already answered that. My bad. Let's see. Whose fantasy football channel will I choose? You choose them both. You know, nothing's funner than having multiple fantasy football leagues. And you can have multiple players to keep track of. Because Lock stays throwing interceptions against the Raiders. Please don't. Oh, no. Let's see. Excited for college ball. Yup. All right, here's a question. Do you still have the UAG? I do not. AVS Forums is saying the firmware you can get is fixing the ghosting. Oh, that's great. That's great. I really hope that's the case. Then the UAG is a little bit more easier to recommend. That said, I still think that it is a step below, you know, any of the high-end like LCD TVs, but it's still a really good TV for what you pay for it. The price has gone up on it a little bit. I think if you're a gamer, I'd probably think about the U7G. Try that out, because I heard some good things about that so far. Doesn't seem too much worse than the UAG. The thing about the UAG that got me was it just had a feeling to it when I was playing games. I don't know if it was the color or just the way the game looked in general. But I swear, like, it reminded me of just playing games on like a TN panel LCD TV or like a monitor, and it just didn't have that pop to it. that I would get out of a different LCD TV like a Samsung or a Sony. It just didn't have that color science that really just made you say wow. So I don't know, it felt a little bit lacking in that department. Also, the processing is definitely not on the same level, which is the only reason why I'm pulling back from being excited about the U9G. That dual cell TV is the processing. Like, can they even pull that off properly? Because they don't really have great processing in place. The motion is definitely all over the place. It's either really good or it's just really stuttery. And there's kind of no in between, and you always have to adjust the motion based on what you're watching. So, yeah, that's the case with a lot of other TVs, but it seems like it was more so with the Hisense. I'm not trying to be negative on the Hisense. I just want to be really honest about the Hisense because there's a lot of mixed reviews out there on the Hisense, and a lot of them are really way too positive in my opinion. And I think that you just need to kind of give the facts about what's going on because the TV is cheap for a reason. It's it's not a premium TV. It's a good TV. It's a good value. It's a good like budget TV, but you definitely have to compare it to like the X90J. And if I'm comparing it to the X90J, I'd probably lean towards the U8G. But I haven't seen the X90J. I've only seen the X900H. Let's see what else. Long-winded answer, I know, I'm sorry. If they drop the U90G price, I might get it if it's good. I hope it's good. If it's good, then, we have like an LCD that can compete with an OLED. And that's pretty interesting in terms of the black levels. I mean, like, I think that the Qn90a is very close to being that TV. There's just some issues with the Qn90a that, definitely wish they didn't have, but that only comes down to like if you really care about accurate picture quality. So a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't care about like creators' intent and all that stuff. Any chances to beg, borrow, or steal the LG ZX and compare it to the A90J? Well, no. That's the 8K one, right? Like that's a super expensive TV. I don't think I've ever even seen an LG 8K OLED. What do you think? LG will add the heatsink next year? I don't. I think that they might for their premium model, not all across the board. So for their premium model, like the G1, they might call it something different even. I could see the heatsink being added. For the C1, I don't see it. I see it staying the same. Just because they need you to pay a premium to step up to something. So if you put it in every TV, like what's the point marketing wise? I don't see them doing that. Hey, Ninjician is here. You good to go? All right, let me add him up. Hey, how's it going? Can't hear?
Let me get my sound fixed first real quick.
All right, I'll let you figure that out. Just give me a thumbs up when you're ready to be added. All right, gonna get Ninjician AV in here, and let's make sure. I don't like that side by side view. There, we'll do that one. All right, looks like we're getting everybody rolled in here. Hey, EHJ, go Broncos. Happy Friday and weekend. Keep up the great grind. Thank you. Yeah, go Broncos. I can't say that enough, honestly. It's amazing. Let's see. For a budget, 1500, would you go for a better 65 or a quality 75 sitting 10 feet away? 10 feet away. I would probably go with the 75. That's just kind of too like far away for me to want to go 65. I say about seven feet from 65 sometimes, and to me that's a little bit too far. So yeah, let's see here. Qn90a has one HDMI 2.1 port. If it had two different story from me, you can get the splitter. That works. But then you have to deal with the switches and all that stuff. But pressing the button. Let's see. See if I missed any questions. Targeting Najee in my fantasy football draft. Nice. Yeah, he is a bell cow. He reminds me of Le'Veon Bell kind of. So definitely somebody to target for sure. Flatman says, I got a Q95T over LGC1 as game on PS5 in a bright conservatory. Did I make the right decision? If it's bright, I think you did. Just depending on how bright it is. I mean, I like my Q90T, so I used to have a C7. The differences in black level aren't super huge. It's definitely noticeable in a dark room, but if you're just like gonna be playing or watching in a daytime situation, I think that you probably made a good decision. I wouldn't second guess it or anything like that. That's the thing when you buy a TV and you love it, don't second guess it because the chances are you're just gonna drive yourself a little crazy with that. Let's see. You good to go? Oh, looks like it's still having audio issues. No problem. Let's see. Have you decided on what TV you're gonna get yet? No, I haven't. I am leaning towards an LG OLED right now, just because it has everything that I need gaming wise, and then it will be really good for watching sports as well. It's tough because there's so much that I love about the Sony TVs, like reality creation. I'm gonna miss that if I get an LG. Like, that's tough, man. What's up, Jay? How is it going, man? Make a Ninjician promise no cats before adding him. No, like he has to have cats. Like that's the thing. It seems like he's having some audio issues right now though. So I'll add him once that's figured out. That way it doesn't, look like he's having a hard time. Cause nobody wants that, right? You don't want to deal with audio issues. Everybody's like, dang man, you can see this man struggling. So that's not something you want to see. That's not something he'd want to see. I mean, NBA Denver Nuggets, yeah, that's my favorite NBA team for sure. Maybe a new surprise player, that'd be cool. Yeah, got it calibrated from VE. Nice. It is tough. Yeah, it is tough. Like this, you guys ask me all these TV questions all the time, and I'm like, man, I'm in the same boat. But it's just gonna really depend on your situation. And for me, like, I am probably a more gamer than I do watch movies. I watch sports a lot, so I have to factor those things in. I'm always thinking about like how is it gonna be in the future too. So. Let's see here. Gamers should definitely not care about creators' intent. I think that depends on the game. Like, if a game is intended to look super dark, I want it to be super dark. I don't want it to be like ultra bright and kind of blown out like on the highlights and stuff like that. Like if I could see in the shadows in Dark Souls, I don't know if that would be as fun. So I kind of actually like playing Dark Souls on an LG because it is a little more crushed at times. So it's like definitely more jump scares in Dark Souls on the LG Z1. But like if you play it on say Q90T or even the A80J, like you could definitely see the near blacks are lifted a little bit, and that's just the way they do it. But it's I don't know. I guess it just depends on what game you're playing. Like for Resident Evil, for example, when I played that, the details that you could see on the A80J and the A90J, that was like amazing. You could see all kinds of stuff in the shadows, and I'm just like playing it on the C1, and I was way more scared on the C1 because I didn't see the stuff coming out of the shadows. So it's definitely. All right, we're gonna add Ninjician to the stream here. Hey, Ninjician, how you doing, man?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Thank
doing
God.
good,
You'd think an audio guy would actually have this
bro.
fixed,
I know.
but I've got a new headset, so
Yeah,
it was
nice.
having pairing issues.
Sweet. How you doing today?
Doing good.
Good. Cool. Yeah, Classy's gonna join us in a little bit. He's dealing with some traffic. So,
Of course.
yeah, you play any games lately that you like really liked?
Dude, you guys don't realize how big a gamer I am.
Oh,
I mean,
I've seen some of your streams. You play some hard games, like which is kind of like
Yeah.
up my alley as well.
So I just beat Celeste on Switch,
Nice.
and
I haven't played that yet.
I just beat Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Yeah, I play a lot of hard, like Metroidvania type platformers and stuff like that.
That's cool.
How's the audio quality on this mic? Because I know in the past when I was using like my phone, especially in the car, I listened to the back end of that stream and it sounded terrible.
It's a little muffled. I'll be honest with you. It's
No,
definitely
it's good because I want to buy
yeah.
a new one. I
Yeah.
have a Yeti, which I should just go grab, to be honest, but I'll think about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna add Classy to the stream here. Let's see.
Cool.
Hey, Classy, how's it doing? How you doing?
All right, how are you doing?
How's it going? Oh wow. Okay. Is everybody audio sound good for everybody in the chat right now?
Yeah, I have mine set where I've been having it set for the last couple streams.
Yeah, you sound good here.
I am going to grab my Yeti. I'll be right back.
All right, sounds good. Let's see.
It's hot.
All right, so I just listened. The audio levels are good. So, how are you doing today, Classy man? How are you doing?
Just hot and lots of traffic.
I hear it.
Yeah, so our area has decided just every direction you want to go, you get a detour that takes you to another one, to another one. So it's just there's barely anywhere anyone can go, and it's just a big old mess.
Yeah, man. Traffic sucks. Nobody wants to deal with that.
All right. All right. I see something about Sony and warranty for burn-it, and so don't know if this is true. I need to check more into it, but I saw that Sony does have a thing where you can extend the warranty through them directly, and they have an upgraded warranty service that also includes accidental damage that people are saying gives you just one panel replacement throughout the length of that warranty. So that's possible. I'm going to look into it for my own panel and see how much it costs. I mean, and worst case, if the TV ever fell off the wall, you could get it replaced.
Yeah. Do we know if what the price is on that?
No, that's what I got to look into it because I might get it for my own panel.
Gotcha. Cool.
So.
I forgot. We were talking about some. Oh yeah, we were talking about games. You play any games lately? Any new games that you like really liked?
I played like a little bit of the Halo preview.
Oh yeah. I haven't played Halo in a long time, bro. It's been a while.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're trying too hard to blend the classic Halo with new Halo, and at the same time, it's going to make people who like classic Halo not happy, and I don't think people who like the new Halo are going to be as happy. So I don't know. Like, it's getting a lot of good praise, but as someone who likes the original Halos more, to me it just still doesn't feel like that old Halo. So I don't know. We'll see what happens when it comes out. It's also very early and very, very jagged looking. Like it was not pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's all these articles and videos saying how much better the graphics look now compared to that E3 reveal. And maybe that's the case, but in the multiplayer preview, the jagged lines to me were just too much. And then the menu was completely not ready. The menu's got completely broken.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I heard the menus were broken, and I heard that even the colors kind of were glitching out at times. I've read that on the forums. I don't know if you experienced that.
No.
No, okay. Yeah, they're saying they were having like these polygon issues, and textures were looking really rough.
Yeah, I mean this
It's a
isn't even
beta,
a
right?
beta.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
even a
It's like
beta.
an alpha, right?
It's before that. It's a technical preview. This
Gotcha.
build is already at least 2 months old. So that's why it's so limited. And then with the LG being able to see the frame rate, it was mostly sticking around 90 to 100. So they need to work on that.
Why can I not hear you guys?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. If you
You
can
guys
hear
hear
us,
me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
hang on, let me. Puppy. Hey, Corin don't want to play back.
Let's see. Best 43 to 50-inch non-OLED TV. I would probably say the 50-inch Qn90a. It's probably your best bet for
Very
that.
weird.
I'm gonna try and just rearrange a little bit here.
Yeah. Let's see. There's like looking for the Jets putting the smackdown on the Are you serious? The Jets? I don't know about that. I don't know about the Jets. Let's see. It's interesting though. They got a new quarterback. Let's see. Would you have any? Right. Okay, OLED have less issues with ABL while playing video games. No, if you have ABL, it's going to be about the same. Like it's just like when you experience something that's super bright, your screen is just going to dim a little bit. That's it. In that area, it's not like the whole screen will go dim. It's just in that area.
Yeah. So many people are confused with ABL and other dimmings.
I talked about that earlier.
Yeah,
I tried to clear it up.
And like I literally put in the Matrix on 4K UHD HDR. The white room scene is like your worst case that you're ever going to experience with ABL, and it's still 185 nits or so on the G1, which is where it's supposed to be in that scene. So I really the whole ABL thing, like maybe a Michael Bay movie, you know, with tons of explosions, when sun glares and everything all at once, you might get a little dimming, but really ABL is not something to be concerned about. And even when it comes to Samsung or anyone else with LCDs, you're still going to see a little bit of change from ABL on those as well, because they can't push all their brightness full screen either. You know, it goes from 1800 nits at, you know, the 10 to 25% windows all the way down to like 800 nits for full screen. That's 1,000 nit difference. So if you're going to see ABL, you're going to see it there too.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely way more noticeable though on an OLED, and it is rare. It doesn't happen like a lot, but it is there.
And I personally, I have not seen any scenes where I've been taken out of an experience looking or seeing ABL be an issue.
Right. Like I said, and definitely more. Some people are more sensitive than others, and I actually am sort of sensitive to it. Like, but the C7 had some really bad like ABL. And the newer TVs are definitely more relaxed, though. I noticed that.
Yeah, well, I've only seen from like C10 up.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
yeah, they're more relaxed than they used to be for sure.
Yeah, like where it matters the more is like if you were to compare the C1 to the G1 or the A80J or A90J, the C1 has the most aggressive ABL, and where that's going to affect is, you know, very bright, colorful games like Plants vs Zombies or Fortnite or whatever. You're not going to get as much SDR brightness out of that. But with HDR, most of the image is in an SDR range anyway, so you hardly ever have like a full screen HDR effect.
Yep. So the thing about ABL that I dislike when I did see it was the whites kind of turned to a gray, and that sort of does take me out of the moment. But like I said, it's definitely better on the newer OLEDs, and I've seen it a lot less for sure.
Yeah, and if you have a good grayscale, then the color of the white shouldn't really change. It should just go from bright white to, you know, a little more gray, but the temperature of it should stay the same. Whereas if your grayscale's off, then you're going to start seeing more red or more green or more blue mixed in with it as it gets darker.
Yeah. Let's see.
Ninjician said he was good.
He's good? Okay.
Yeah.
You good to go?
How is this mic?
It's good.
Sounds good here.
Excellent.
Sounds a lot better. The other
So-
one definitely sounded like
Trash?
some 90s. Like, yeah.
These, which were a heirloom from a conquest, apparently I got to fix them because this is loose, so I couldn't hear you guys.
Is that the Steel series?
No, these are. Gosh, what are these? These are some
PreSonus,
HD7s.
okay.
PreSonus, yeah. They're just some studio monitors.
Yeah.
They're nice. They're pretty open ear.
Awesome.
But yeah, cool. So now I can catch up on the comments.
Yeah. I don't think I missed any questions. We were talking about ABL and how that used to be more of an issue, and it's becoming less of an issue now with the newer OLEDs. They're definitely more relaxed with ABL.
So the thing with the OLEDs is you can only get so much full screen brightness, like regardless of the tech. You know, you're not breaking that 200 nit barrier anytime soon.
Right.
With the, I know you were talking earlier about logo luminance dimming and things like that.
Yeah.
Whether it's LG or Sony, when they do like that logo luminance, they are dimming down the whole screen. So
Right.
it used to be on the C9 and the B8 that it was actually pretty targeted. Like you could actually see the dimming around the logos, which was always driving me nuts. I never really noticed the full screen dimming until I started with the CX and the C1.
Yeah.
Oh, good God. Do not read that comment.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole logo dimming thing, like I have tested and measured and everything. What I have come up with is on the LG, if logo dimming is at low, its floor, if you want to call it that, of how much it's going to dim is 15%. And if it's at high, it'll dim by 30%. And then Sony, who gives you no adjustment, you can't disable it, goes all the way to 50%. But that's only when your peak luminance is high and your brightness is maxed.
Oh, cool.
Cool. Let's see.
Yeah, for those that don't know, my girlfriend streams, so this is actually her streamer mic, so I just grabbed it out of the other room.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh yeah, I was asking you about what games you've played. You were talking about Celeste, and you play a lot of Metroidvania. You play Dark Souls, right?
Yep, beat all the Dark Souls, Bloodborne.
Cool.
I had a stream a while back where I did a single run on Sekiro without
Nice.
dying. That was
Wow.
pretty sweet.
Yeah,
We-
that's
We literally beat the whole game and every single boss in the game without dying. That was fun.
Did you like have to power level a little bit more before Genichiro then? Because like he gave me some trouble the first time I played him. I think it took me like 20 deaths before I beat Genichiro.
Like the neat thing about that game is once you get the hang of it, like once you understand the patterns of all the bosses, you can just wreck them.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a level thing as much.
Yeah. It's definitely a learning curve.
Yeah.
Between all the Souls games, like what do you think is the best?
I'd say Bloodborne is probably the best. It's just a shame that it doesn't run at 60.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you've got the best world building.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the best weapons, story, and the combat is so visceral. Like they basically said, let's take Dark Souls, throw away the whole blocking mechanic,
Yeah.
and make you get up in everyone's face, which is the opposite of what most people do. So Bloodborne was probably one of my first big soul games, and I really like that one.
Yeah. So we got super chat. I'm not gonna post it on the screen because the name is offensive.
Thank you for the
But-
super chat,
but thank
Trump's
you.
right testicle.
Thank you for the super chat. And he
Yeah.
says, PC mode on, does it increase input lag?
No.
No.
What's interesting, and I don't know how much you guys have tested this. I run my PS5 on limited for the black level. A lot of people talk about, oh, you want to run 0 to 255 or all this nonsense.
Mhm.
The LGs, this may be different for Sony, but they work in a limited range for the actual lookup tables and color and all that.
Yeah.
So with PC mode, everyone's all about 444. You still get 444 even in limited.
Right.
The benefit to PC mode, and you guys can test this, is that when you do 120 hertz in HDR, when you're, I don't know what's going on with LG, but if you don't have it in PC mode, it looks like it's trying to double convert the signal because you get banding.
Yeah, I noticed the banding for sure.
With PC mode on the CX and C1, way less banding, much less posterization.
Okay.
So
See,
that's
and when
the
I did that
only
on
reason.
the Xbox, it was the same.
The exact same. Are you running it at 8-bit
120.
or 10-bit or
10-bit HDR 120 PC mode made like no difference to me.
That's really weird. I know we talked about that being like maybe it's a bandwidth thing or
I think it's just inherent in the games and the way the games are designed right now.
maybe.
That's why I wanted to look more into if it's more on the Xbox than it is on the PlayStation, and maybe that's why some people see a difference and some don't.
I guess it could depend on which way it's outputting the bit depth. I wish I still had my Series X so I could test it. But generally, if you're getting banding, that means that the TV may, or the Xbox may be trying to output a 12-bit signal, but the TV's saying no, and then it's compressing it down to an 8-bit signal. That's usually where that banding came from on the old PC modes. So that's really weird.
The Sony TVs are really bad with banding at 120 hertz for gaming.
See, and again, I have the opposite, at least in my
Really?
opinion, but that's mainly because the LG smooth gradation does nothing and smooth gradation on the
Right.
Sony does something.
Right. So
I turn
yeah,
all that shit off.
you you can definitely like smooth it out, but then you're losing some details, right?
See, I've only noticed it really make a loss of detail at high, and there it's obvious.
Okay.
At low and medium, I don't really see anything, even in really fine texture detail. It looks about the same. So if you do have banding on the Sony, I'd put smooth gradation at medium, and most of the banding is gone.
Yeah, the dithering, which is part of that smooth gradation process, because that's what you're doing is you're basically, imagine you've got a gradient and it's two things of like flour or like colored powder. The Sony's sprinkling that in between, kind of mixing them up a little bit. So if you have hard edges or certain things where there is detail, sometimes Sony won't know the difference between posterization and not. And so when you smear that little bit of color transition, you lose a little bit. So that's why having a really clean 10-bit signal for HDR is usually the best way to go for these panels.
Okay.
So that's weird on the Xbox. It shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. Let's see. Got a comment. Super chat from Vamps TV. Thank you. Any plans on the Samsung G9 testing? I want to actually. That's awesome that you got it pre-ordered. And yeah, the early reviews on it are pretty sweet. I'd probably use it as a creator as well because I just really want that super wide screen, especially for video editing. That would be pretty cool. There's also like ways around the watching Netflix in ultra wide too, so that would be kind of sweet. I don't think you could watch it in 32:9, but watching some stuff in 21:9 on a monitor like that might be pretty cool. Have you seen the specs on that, Ninjician?
I'm looking at it right now. So $1,000 more than the LG 48, but
it's
we're
so
talking
super expensive.
See,
2,000 nits, 240 hertz refresh rate.
My problem with those is those 49-inch super ultra wides like that, they're not tall enough. I want more height, especially for PC use. Like if you go back a long time ago when we switched to 16:9, so many of the like workstation monitors and stuff that people actually wanted were 16:10 because they wanted that extra height. So to me, like that's why I want to change this ultra wide for the 48C1, because then I'm actually getting a few more pixels in width, but a lot more in height.
Yeah.
Your apparent resolution on this vertical resolution is 1440p.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like having two 2160 by 1440. It's like having two 1440 monitors side by side. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and that's sort of the sweet spot. You don't want anything higher. You're gonna really need a super graphics card if you went any higher than that, I think.
Yeah, that's neat.
I mean, you still kind of need one, but
I'm still hoping those 42-inch OLEDs, like the
Yeah.
LG M's or whatever. I've heard they're only 60 hertz though, and that's kind of breaking my heart.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing too. I heard they're the A1 models and it's
Yeah,
60 hertz. Yeah, that's a bummer
just
if that's true.
that's a huge bummer. Like I play a lot of stuff in 120,
Yeah,
and there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, well, I can't see the difference in 120." Like for me, it's more about the feel.
yeah,
Like
it's about the feel.
controller to TV, like
Hmm.
it just feels better. Like
It feels
regardless of
smoother. Yeah,
if you're not looking at the blur, like yeah, you can see the blur on content, but I'm telling you, like running stuff at 120, even if it's a little bit lower res, is freaking great.
yeah.
Sea of
Like,
Thieves is one of the best games to actually see it run better.
mhm.
Yeah.
If you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm messing around with this USB to Ethernet adapter, and the connection keeps dropping on the TV. And
For
I've
the
figured
TV?
out except it's actually my Ethernet cable that I just
Ah.
ran through a whole bunch of shit, so I got to deal with that later.
Yeah.
I've
But
got
on
one
the-
of those for my Switch.
Yeah, on the topic of 120 hertz, like when I run the Samsung on Game Motion Plus, when I'm running 60 hertz games and I put the
Yeah.
blur to 10, like I can get it to feel like 120 hertz. And I think that's really cool because I don't see a difference from playing Call of Duty in 120 hertz from playing at 60 frames with the Game Motion Plus on. And I think
Yeah.
something like that is so awesome, and it just makes sense for other TV manufacturers to add. Do you think that's something we could see in the future, or like?
Like interpolation for 60 hertz games?
Yeah, with game mode on, so
Yeah,
you
you
have
could.
to
So
have the input
the
lag.
one of the biggest things on like LCDs or LEDs is that there's always going to be a larger amount of blur just due to the
Mhm.
mechanical nature of LCD versus, self-emissive LED.
Right. Yeah,
I would just rather see more 120 hertz games
for sure.
because you can experiment with that whole interpolation thing. I
Mhm.
think that since you have that little bit of extra time on the Samsung for that transition, it might make it easier for them to interpolate with the 60 hertz. Where on an OLED, you might be sacrificing some response time. So you might be able to do it, but it might actually smear just like the LCD would. And I think that's the only reason LG hasn't gone that route. What's going to be interesting, right? Is when Samsung OLEDs come out, because then
Yeah.
you'll see if they're implementing that technology in their TVs.
Yeah, I thought about that too. It'll be interesting to see if they have that. That would be really cool, for
I
sure.
mean, they should. Let's
Yeah,
hope.
yeah. So Vamps with another super sticker. Thank you. I feel like if LGD doesn't get panels to 240 hertz for 42-inch OLED, a lot of PC gamers will just ignore it, or at least at 144 hertz. Yeah, for sure. Like 60 hertz, a lot of PC gamers are just gonna skip past it. Like no, if you're running a PC monitor and you're just running 60 hertz, I doubt that's your target. As a PC gamer and even as a console gamer at this point, like you're to the point where you want to see 120 hertz if you're buying these consoles. Like what's the point of 60, you know?
Reading through some of these comments.
So, in a kind of bit of surprise, the CEC issues on the LG that was coming and going and coming and going, even when it was working, it was never that great. The A80J, all the CEC stuff works great. I had it go out one time, but realized that instead of doing a factory reset and unplugging everything and all of that, all I have to do is go through the initial setup again, and then it's all been working great. And the remote controls everything, and even the audio on the receiver controls as if it was the regular receiver remote where it goes up and down really fast. Whereas on the LG, if you held down the button, it would just go click, 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 click. It took forever.
That's crazy.
So,
Yeah, I hear a lot of people say like all of a sudden their CEC works or all of a sudden their ARC is actually working with their unit now. And actually had a comment saying that one of the HDMI 2.1 splitters, the one that I reviewed, they actually hooked that up to their LG and then they were able to get all these codecs working that weren't working previously. And I'm like, that's weird. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I got that splitter. I hooked it up for the Xbox and the PlayStation to go to port 4 on the TV. What I noticed is whatever is in port 1 is what the TV is going to always read. So with the Xbox is 1. If I switch over to the PS5, it still says Xbox, but it works. So
yeah. And with the Sony also, if you're say in Dolby Vision 60 hertz on the Xbox, but you're in 120 hertz on the PlayStation 5, it'll switch the enhanced mode off automatically for you just by switching the button. So that's pretty cool.
I'll have to try that
Yeah,
because
that's what it did for the UAG. So
okay, yeah. So if the Sony though doesn't like, I tried the U8G. Does that not have a thing where you have to tell the Hdmi to do Dolby
do.
Vision and one?
Yeah,
okay.
you do.
All right, well, I doubt it'll do that on the Sony.
Yeah,
But I'll check.
you have to put it in enhanced mode if you're gonna run it on Dolby Vision 60 if you're running 120 hertz. So because LG is the only one that can do 120 Dolby Vision.
Yeah, like right now it's in enhanced for 4K 120, and then if I wanted Dolby Vision, I would have to change it to Dolby Vision 60.
Yeah. Any issues with this so far? I haven't experienced anything, so just wondering if you.
No, I only had it up for one night so far, though.
Cool. Oh, don't switch the ports. If you switch the ports like in the middle of it, you'll have like a split screen. You don't want to do that. So just make sure you turn off the system first. That's the only issue that I ran into. Another super chat from Vamps. I think the biggest difference with QD OLED is Samsung display had monitors in mind where LG took forever to scale down. That's interesting.
Hey.
Yeah. Do you know anything about this comment? Got anything to add to this?
I think people are just assuming that since Samsung has always made smaller displays, where LG's always kind of started with TVs.
Yeah.
I assume that they're assuming that because Samsung's always done like tablets and phones,
right,
that they're going to be ahead of the game. But QD OLED's a completely different tech than the RGB OLED that my phone uses. So
the phone uses like AMOLED, right?
AMOLED.
Yeah. So
it's more of a tiled type of RGB OLED. It's different.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the next couple things I'm going to review is the Samsung Q90a and the Sony X85J.
Okay.
So if chat wants to let me know which one I should do first.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
I'll probably pick it up tomorrow.
Are they about the same price or?
Yeah. The prices actually just went back up to non-sale prices. That kind of sucks, but the 55s are, I believe, 1,000 and 1,100.
Yeah.
So, which is too much for that kind of range of TV, in my opinion. But come Black Friday season.
Yeah, Jose, I would definitely go with the Qn90a over the UAG. If you have the budget for it, I think the Qn90a is probably the best LCD TV on the market you could buy. But I haven't seen the X95J, so I can't say that confidently until I see that. But it's the best one I've tested. So,
and just so the chat's aware, the Q7, I'm confused because of the whole Costco naming thing, and the Q70A is a VA panel. They're literally that and the X85J are both VA 120 hertz HDMI 2.1. Everything's pretty much identical on them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it is as an edgelit, because the edgelets, they look pretty good for the most part until you get to the blacks, and you get like the grayish blacks, and you start to see the weaknesses there. But you don't see blooming, so that's gonna be a plus side for some people.
The big thing you can do in the store is literally, if you get your hands on a Q90A, is put it into cinema mode, which is its more accurate mode, and just see what you think on how that looks. Because honestly, like, its out of the box mode looks so bright and so attractive, but when you actually have it in a dark room, you're not going to want it in that mode. Believe me.
Yeah.
Some people do. They might. But look at the color of black and the colors and the contrast ratio, because we were running tests with gravity, and dynamic mode looks amazing. You put it in calibrated mode, and it's okay. It looks good.
Right.
Like it's usable.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
Yeah, and it's actually out of the box color is pretty good compared to like the Q90T last year. So if you're not calibrating, that's a pretty good TV out of the box. And like you said, gravity is definitely going to be a tough task for it. Really any LCD, right? And on the Qn90a specifically, I could see it crushing a lot of the details in a scene like Gravity, like in any scenes from Gravity, because that's a dark movie, man.
Yeah, it's a good test.
Let's see.
Yeah, Brad Smith, the Q70A is an oddball because like the Q80A is IPS, the Q70A, which is lower, has VA panel. But yeah, it's HDMI 2.1, 120 hertz. It's that and the X85J are the two lowest models from Samsung and Sony that have 4K 120 gaming.
Yeah, the 7 series has always been like the Samsung model for gamers at like kind of almost like the entry level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I haven't really kept up with Samsung since I left Magnolia back in June. So like all the new models coming out, I haven't paid attention to them.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how like a Q70T would compare to say like a Q7 FN or a Q6 FN.
Probably worse.
Yeah, probably worse for sure. But like they're both edgelit, right? So
I believe the Q70T was edgelit, but I thought it had like a dual layer, so they had a little bit better contrast than like the Q60.
oh no, I was saying the Q7 FN.
Oh, the Q7 FN. Yeah,
Yeah.
those were all edgelit,
Yeah.
as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just depends.
Because I have a Q7 FN downstairs and I like it. I only notice the black levels like if I'm watching a really dark movie.
Yeah, and that's how most people are. Like
Yeah.
it's your viewing environment kind of dictates, what type of TV and what you can get. And I think the biggest thing with Samsung is they offer a product all the way down to $100, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can pay more and more and more and get a better and better Samsung. But there's that tipping point between OLED and LCD where most people are going to be like, oh, this looks good enough for me. And even the colors will look good out of the box. It's not going to be perfect. For most people can't tell the difference. So that's why they dominate that market.
Yeah. I really don't know why they get rid of the One Connect box for those models, because that's the only reason I got that TV in the living room is because of the One Connect box. I didn't want a bunch of wires hanging down from my TV, and I didn't want to go in wall. So it's like, oh, this little one invisible looking wire is perfect.
My guess is that they want to push 8K because not a lot of manufacturers are doing 8K.
Yeah.
So like, well, you want the One Connect, get the 800, 900 series or whatever. Now you got your fiber line, which I'm going to be honest, as cool as that box is, I've seen way too many issues with those fiber lines getting pinched or broken, and then you're screwed.
Yeah.
So like I said, I was an integrator. So I've done the fiber line to do the in-wall. So if you want to actually hidden, is about $220 from Samsung for the 10-foot cable.
Gotcha. Yeah, like I didn't have any issues with it yet, but I do have a 5-year warranty on it because when I worked at Best Buy, it was like $60. So I was like, whatever.
Oh yeah, it's like nothing.
That's
I
the one
sold
thing
my
about
C9, but yeah, I gave the person I sold my C9 to a copy of the receipt. I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work,
yeah,
but because I got employee price on the Geek Squad.
yeah. I think it should work as long as they have the original receipt.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
You want to put up Derek's question?
Yeah, I will. Let's see. I gotta catch up on these real quick. First, let's go to Vamps super chat saying in the monitor space it's gonna be hard for QD OLED though, because BOE has a 32-inch 4K 144 hertz OLED ready and it's working on ultra wide. Wow. That's pretty impressive. I would love to see that. Let's see. We got another one from Rod Lowe, $4.99. Thank you for the super chat. An open box Sony 950H 85-inch for $2,600 or a Samsung Q90R for $2,800 82-inch, or wait till Black Friday. Coming from a TCL 4 series, 3K budget, want 80-inch plus.
Yeah, I would not pay more for older and smaller.
$2,800 for an 82-inch Q90R is kind of interesting though. Like that's a really impressive TV if you're not gaming. Gaming has some blooming issues. I don't know if they fixed it with the firmware, but that's a really good price. It is what, 2 years old at this point.
Yeah, the 950H is last year. The 90R would be the year before.
Yeah, and
so
if
it's 3 inches smaller, more expensive.
Right. And if it's open box, how open box is it? Like, is it off, or is it, if it's on display, like if it's display model and it's been running for 2 years on a display, that's kind of worrisome. What would you guys do for a $3,000 budget if 80-inch plus in this situation?
Right now, I would say the 80 plus, 85-inch stuff is just not priced well. I mean, not much of anything really is priced well right this minute. So I would wait a little bit longer.
What about you, Matt?
I mean, I was in a similar situation with a client. So an 85-inch 2600, you can typically get that TV for about 3,000 new. Honestly, so I wouldn't mess around with the open box Sony, because one thing about the open box Sony is you absolutely have to get the warranty from the store.
Yeah.
Because Sony does not honor their warranty if it's open box. For those that don't know that, if you buy an open box Sony, your warranty is void. You need that's really important. I didn't know if that's an open box Samsung or not, but the Samsung 90R was fantastic. So that's essentially, imagine like a 90T but with slightly better blooming control. The downside to that is you do lose out on a lot of the next gen features, but let's be honest, like if you're running 60 or 120, like you're fairly covered. The issue with that is you don't have HDMI 2.1 on either of those TVs. So if you're going to be gaming, that's one thing, but there was no gaming mentioned in that post. So I would just ask if he plans on gaming on it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's kind of where I was at too. It's like if you're not gaming at all, then I would definitely go with the Q90R. It's a really good deal. I am kind of worried about buying open box at 80 inches or more, just because like once you get it home and you see why they returned it, it might be some DSE is why they returned it.
It's such a pain in the ass.
And returning a 80-inch TV, like good luck with that. Like.
Yeah. And then Brad Smith said like the X85J 85-inch. My problem with that one is it's not as bright and a step down from even the 900H, which was rebranded this year as the X91J. So you can get an X91J 85-inch, which is the same as the 900H last year for 25, 2600, whatever. But we all know the 900H 85-inch went to $2,000 or less. So I expect the X91J to also go to $2,000 or less soon.
Yeah. Let's see. I got another super chat I wanted to get to. He was asking about HGIG. It lowers the brightness too much. Any solutions? I know you were testing it, Matt. And did you find it?
Yeah. So I mean, it just depends. Like, you have to think of it this way. Think of your OLED screen as having just enough power to push light out through the highlights or brighten the entire image. So with HGIG, the biggest complaint about HDR is that it's too dim, but HDR is designed to be viewed in a dark room with 5 nits of light around it. That's just the state of it. So if you think HGIG is too dim, great. Use dynamic tone mapping on an LG. I'm not going to argue with that, because it's literally like, do you like your backlight at 25 or do you like it at 80? I can't tell you what you like better.
Right.
The dynamic tone mapping, it's fine. HGIG is going to be more accurate.
Yep.
So it's going to basically map the colors and the brightness exactly the way that it should be. But here's the other part of it. And I was having a conversation with someone else online today. Some games don't really support HGIG or even support HDR very well. So someone brought up Red Dead Redemption 2 earlier today on Vincent Tio's channel. And I basically explained that game doesn't work well with HGIG because it's not true HDR.
Right.
Perfect example of when to use dynamic tone mapping if you're not happy. So it just depends.
For sure. Yeah, it is definitely a game-by-game thing, because that's what I experienced as well. MLB The Show, I tried HGIG with that. I noticed all it did was just lift the highlights in the sky a little bit. So I knew that game wasn't HGIG compliant, so I just ran in dynamic tone mapping, and it was bright, so that's what I want. I want a bright baseball game. So it's definitely a game-by-game kind of thing. But if you're playing, say, like Dark Souls or something, and you want really good HDR, you're probably not going to want to turn on dynamic tone mapping, because you're going to lift the whole entire screen. And do you want that in a game like Dark Souls, So it really depends on the game.
Think of it kind of like a seesaw effect. So you have HDR with, HDIG or good tone mapping starts at the bottom and works its way up, and then you have your highlights up here. But if you turn on dynamic tone mapping, what you're doing is you're sacrificing those highlights to brighten everything else.
Yep. Can't have it all.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So Ahmad with super chat, thank you. He said the Q70A 75-inch 2300 or X85J 75-inch 1600. So this is actually going to be a really good question for Classy once he tests this out. Having not seen either, I can't really say. I would say just it kind of depends on what the TV features in terms of Sony versus Samsung on that level, right?
At that price difference, they're going to be so close.
Yeah.
Just at that price difference, get the Sony because it's cheaper.
Right.
I'm a kind of an elitist where I don't touch any of the Sonys that are under the 9 series, but that's just me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I was gonna say, the X90J even it's a good TV, but it's not a great TV, especially at its price. So.
I would typically go with the Samsung, but that's me.
Also,
and I'm a Sony guy.
As much as I didn't like the U8G, I would say maybe the U7G 75-inch for what I think it was like 2000 or something. I don't know what the price is on that, or maybe it's 1500. I have to look it up, but something on that line you might be able to find better results with because it is full array, and that might be better for a 75-inch TV.
Yeah, and like normal.
Oh, sorry, these two are edge lit, and if you could find a full array from like last year, or maybe a budget one for 75 inches, that's probably the better bet at that price tag anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I was just normally I'm one to say, don't worry about saving a few $100. Buy when you're ready. That way you can start enjoying it. But right now, most of the TVs I've seen go back to like their normal retail prices or very close. And we're coming up to October, and we typically see really big discounts in October, just before the Black Friday stuff starts. Or even at the end of September, they'll go on discount, and then they'll bring them back up, and then bring them back down again for Black Friday. So I would say wait for September, October at this point because we're right around the corner. Because I imagine you'll be able to get the 75-inch X90J for $1,600 or thereabouts.
Yeah. Definitely, and then the TCL 6 series is also a good one to mention if you can find it. The chances are you finding it is really low though, but it's a really good TV for the price. You guys have anything to add?
I was gonna say Best Buy last year did Black Friday all month, so Black Friday started in October, and they just kept adding more and more stuff to the sale. So I'm assuming they're gonna follow the same trend this year.
Yeah, probably. They if they find something that works, they usually stick to it. That's kind of their motto. Let's see. Miss any questions? Feel free to point something out if you guys see something I missed.
I mean, I snagged a couple questions earlier that were interesting. Some of them were technical, so I just answered them in chat.
Here's a question. With a $3,000 budget, 77-inch C10, and the budget is strict, or for another $500, would you do a C1 or an 80J? See, my view on this is I definitely would just get the cheapest one out of these because they're so close. A 77-inch OLED is going to be a 77-inch OLED for the most part with that price difference.
See, for me, that $500 for the size, and I mean, if you're already paying $3,000, I would go for the newer one and get the little bit extra plus the extra year of support, and better near black handling and better motion, better upscaling. That's for me. And right now the C1 actually dropped, so it's $3,300.
So AJ or something. I mean, I don't know why, but CX for LG, whatever they did that year, like the panels just weren't quite as bright. And whether it was 77, 65, 48, all of those. So jumping from C9 to C1, brightness stayed about the same. And most people would die to find a C9, which is why I was able to sell mine. But yeah, I'd say the extra money for the C1 just for future updates, like, Classy said, more support. And the fact that on a 77 C1, you're most likely getting an Evo panel. So even though you're not getting the G1 unlocks of an Evo panel, you still got a panel that's 20% more efficient, so it's actually going to have less burn-in potential, longer life, things like that. So
Cool.
just depends.
Yeah, I actually read this question wrong. I thought he said his budget is strict, but he said if the budget is strict.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay,
he
so
was replying to the guy talking about 3,000 for an
oh,
Yeah, yeah.
85.
okay. Well, I guess we
Yeah.
answered that guy's question.
There you
Yeah.
go.
And full on, like if you don't really want VRR and Dolby Vision gaming, pay the extra and get the A80J,
Yeah.
because it really is competing with the G1. It's a higher class,
Hmm.
at least in 77 inches.
Yeah, that there's definitely a difference. If you don't want gaming, I would definitely go with the Sony.
Go big, Preston.
All right, someone said reference over preference or preference over reference with certain content. So there's a lot about that.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go first and say that when I've been doing calibrations now, my main focus is getting the white point to look right, and then pretty much with like the G1 or the 80J or even the C1, everything else kind of just falls in line and looks good enough just with a 2-point white balance. And then you can touch up colors or whatever after that. But the main thing comes down to like the gamma setting, the brightness, and for that you always just want to match to your environment. And so I have found for my environment with this moderate lighting, and also being able to turn off the lights and not be too bright for SDR, I do 2.2 at 165 nits. So it may not be like what's supposed to be the standard, but I also found out that the standard's not as old as we had thought. And I watch a lot of older stuff. So there's a really big discussion there that's very technical.
Yeah. I guess my view on this is just if you want reference, you're not gonna get anything else but reference. Like for example, I have a long background in audio engineering, and I listen to my music just strictly on studio monitors. And when I hear it on anything else, I don't like it. So it's just my reference has become my preference in that respective. But like for watching TV, I personally go with preference just because I haven't seen reference enough to like care for it that much. I do like that when colors don't clip. I definitely want it accurate in that result. So it's to a degree. And I think it definitely comes down to your personal preference, whether you want reference or preference, right? Wouldn't you say that, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think of how everything's set up in my spot right now, and everything's dead on reference. And you can see how bright the room is. I'll turn the laptop around so you can kind of see the setup over there. So you can see how bright the actual living room is. I've got windows all around. I've got windows behind me.
Yeah.
When I have everything at reference, so SDR, peak white, 124 nits, Dolby Vision, EOTF tracks accurately. Games, I don't use HGIG. I've set it up where the games, I tone map them myself with the service menu. So everything tracks perfectly. What I find is when I switch from content to content to content, they all match, except when I watch something in HDR, those highlights in that dynamic range goes way up higher. And it's a beautiful thing because no matter what time of day I watch the TV in, it all looks fantastic. And the colors are spot on. So I'm definitely a reference guy. Obviously, that's my side gig as I calibrate TVs. And LG is very, very good in terms of being able to match Sony's color quality once it's calibrated.
Gotcha.
So it's cool.
Do you ever find yourself cheating and like going outside of the reference for certain content?
Well, like with gamma, like the whole 2.4 debate.
So the thing about 2.2, 2.4, and all this nonsense is it really depends on how you like the viewing environment that you're watching the TV in. So I got into it with a YouTuber about 2.4 versus 2.2. And the reality is when you do a calibration to day settings for clients, they typically recommend 2.2, even 1.9 for the gamma, and a higher luminance, like a higher brightness output. I would rather find a standard that works for all content, all times of day, and just looks great. So if I had a client last week, very bright room, played lots of games, and honestly, he was used to watching everything in Dolby Vision through his Apple TV. So what I did is I set up almost like an HLG mode for SDR in his space, which is a 2.2 gamma curve and peak white at 203 nits, which is basically what the ITU determines is for HLG conversion down to SDR. Without getting too technical, it made it look like it was still just as bright, and he doesn't watch anything in a dark room. So the dude was happy. There's ways to do it, is my point. So this whole 2.4 BT1886, 80 nits, 100 nits peak in a dark room, you can do that, but I design it so that it's livable.
Yeah, like I said, I've set up like filmmaker mode to 2.4, 100 nits, whatever, and never once do I actually want to switch to that mode. It's just always too dark for, even if I turn off the lights and stuff. Like this room is not blacked out. There's no black walls or black curtains. It's always too dark.
Yeah. And what's interesting is 200 nits even is not twice as bright as 100 nits.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that hard on your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So 165 is like that perfect intermediary between the two. So the 165 makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And I stumbled on 165 because I was trying to find where I could eliminate the ABL as much as possible.
Right.
So what I did is I
figured that.
like maxed out the brightness. All right, where is the ABL? Like, what is it going to level or measure at? And then that's what I set my 10% to. And then when I rechecked the full screen brightness, it was at 145. So it was only a 20 nit difference. Like there's no noticing the difference from ABL at all.
So that's what you watch SDR in, or?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So like, I have like a decent collection of 4K movies, but out of 500 plus movies that I have, 95% of them are Blu-rays, and that's all SDR 1080p. So that's like the main determining factor of why I have the Sony sitting here now instead of the G1, and then gonna get the C1 or maybe the 55 G1 for gaming and monitor and stuff. But anyway, yeah. So just focusing on older SDR stuff, and then that's where like I thought that SDR standard of 2.4 was way older, but that article from Dolby says it was 2011. Just about everything I can think of from 2011 onwards is available in HDR, so that basically makes it a moot point.
Yeah.
So if I'm watching stuff from the 90s and 2000s, I have no idea if it was created for 2.2 or 2.4 or whatever. So I'm just setting the TV up for what looks good for my content.
Yeah. IRL HDR has a question. He says, what exactly does LG's tone mapping do to a scene? I keep hearing that conflicting answers to that question. So you want to clear that up?
Yeah, I have a video on that. I tested it, and also with Dolby Vision using Cinema Home versus Home, or I mean just Cinema. And I actually found that LG's dynamic tone mapping seems to do a better job than the Dolby Vision Cinema Home versus Cinema did. And what I mean by that is LG's algorithm did a pretty good job at brightening stuff that you wanted brighter without brightening the really dark stuff as much, and also keeping the highlights a little bit better than what Dolby Vision was doing in Cinema Home.
So your dynamic tone mapping basically looks at the entire range of brightness. So black, it looks at the brightest point on the screen, and it kind of tone maps to that in real time. It's kind of weird for gaming because if you kind of turn the screen around, you'll get different highlights, different details scene by scene. And what it does is it just changes the rolls off so that it retains specular highlight detail. But it kind of guesses what the average picture level should be,
right?
Scene to scene. And that's why if you have a scene that has a lot of dark imagery in it, it's going to boost that up, because if it has any like mid-range APL in there, it's going to assume the whole scene needs to be brighter. But yeah, I mean, it does a good job, but it's not a substitute for proper dynamic metadata like Dolby Vision.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why like I either have to use HGIG or the dynamic tone mapping, because otherwise it feels a little dull. Like, and I don't want that out of my HDR. So
he's hungry. That's why he's attacking me.
Good question. Good question.
Mhm.
Let's see.
She just wanted mommy.
C1
Princeton, that
versus
was a different
G1
cat.
for
Oh.
HDR PC Gaming. Classy. You seen them both?
Yep.
You seen them too, Matt. So
I have seen them both. I got to play the Halo beta for Infinite on G1 last week.
nice.
Yep. Yeah. I would say for HDR, you might not notice as much of a difference as you would for SDR. But for PC gaming, I mean, how much are you actually using HDR on PC gaming? I guess it's more newer games than probably a lot, but I don't know. I've just always not been a fan of HDR on Windows. Just the way they implement it, I think they still need a lot of work in making that better. But yeah, the biggest difference with C1 and G1 is your full screen or near full screen brightness from a more relaxed ABL. The HDR highlights aren't going to be that much different.
Yeah, it's not like A80J to a A90J sort of situation.
And I actually think the A80 and A90 is less of a difference.
Oh, you do?
At least at 77 inches, because at 77, the A80J, Evo panel, and it's measurably the same as the G1 and the A90J. It's the C1 that is held back more by the ABL, has more aggressive ABL than the other models.
See, what I've found was like just the A90J just felt like it was brighter, and it seemed like it was doing something with the algorithm that made it brighter for the A90J compared to the A80J, and it stuck out for real medium to small size specular highlights. It got super bright.
Yeah, the APL or average picture level on the A90 is higher. But as far as HDR highlights or just measurements and stuff, they're the same. It's the heatsink lets the whole screen, the average picture level, get brighter, and it clears up the image retention way faster. It can hold highlights for a longer period of time, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I actually couldn't get image retention to work, like to happen on the A90J, and I tried.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's like
anything to add.
You have the C1 as far as like ABL. You have the C1 down here, then the G1 and A80J, and then the A90J.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're hooking up to a PC, I'm assuming that you're going to be playing games on it. I would definitely just go for the G1. 5-year warranty.
Yeah.
Guaranteed Evo
That's a good
panel.
point.
And that mid-level brightness, especially if you're going to use it as a monitor, you're going to have less dim down, so you're going to get a brighter image. There's a lot of things that go into it. I mean,
that's a good point.
If you're putting on a desk too, you also have a much slimmer profile with the gallery feet. You can push it right up against the wall. There's just a lot of things that I would definitely say G1. As long as it's in the budget. Most people like try and think out of their own pockets, but for some people, like even the 8Ks, they'll buy an 8K. Like it's just they want what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely get the G1 if it's in your budget. It's a better panel. It's a better option at all times. So C1 versus G1, always go G1.
That's a good point about the average picture level, and like if you're running it as a PC monitor, you're probably running different applications. You're probably running a lot of full screen, like close to full screen white on it. Like if you're going on Google or anything like that. So that kind of thing could be a factor, honestly, and because that's what I heard a downside is with using a 48-inch C1 as a monitor. Some people say that it just is too dim for them.
Yeah,
so
that's why, like, if I get the 48 C1, I'm definitely getting a warranty with it because it's monitor purpose. And then, but I really want to get a 55 G1. The only thing is this wall right here, it would literally take up all the space it has, and I have to figure out where to put my computer. Yeah. So
I'll have to give you some burn-in slides from my girl's 48CX because all she does, you have to think I've got TCP GCR off or GSR, no pixel shift, no logo dimming, none of that, right?
Wow.
Yeah, same.
It's
Turn it all
reference.
off, huh?
It's reference, so it's 123 net peak, color space calibrated, right? All she does is play Stardew, Animal Crossing, Final Fantasy 14, all these crazy cool games on it, but she'll like put it on pause and walk away for like hours. So I'll do a burn-in test for you on the 48CX. Maybe it'll make it feel a little better.
Cool.
They're making fun of my cat.
So
I'm gonna have
if
to double fist.
if that monitor wasn't in reference, do you think it'd be more in risk of being burned in?
Burn-in is cumulative,
Right.
so you can't get an OLED to burn in overnight. Like even if you just blast CNN for like a week, it's not going to burn in.
Yeah.
You're talking thousands of hours to cause that brightness differential between the pixels that are constantly on versus the ones that aren't. So every OLED has a finite lifespan as well as all of the brightness output on the pixels. About 100,000 hours if you're running it reference to a half brightness. So burn in isn't burn in. I would rather it be called dim down.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're using it as a monitor and say you're running like an application every day, let's say this application like Pro Tools, for example, and all you do is edit audio, right? Do you think that would be an issue for somebody if they wanted to get an OLED?
If that's all they're doing, then yeah, I would probably just get a, like a ultra sharp or something that's more designed for just, color grading purposes or just a standard monitor.
Yeah.
Most of these people are buying the OLEDs as monitors because they're going to play games on it or watch
Right.
movies on it.
Yeah.
So just depends. Most people, I guess I would say the ones that want it are generally going to vary their content anyways.
That's fair.
Yeah, man. Oddly enough, like the C1 barely has any image retention at all, but I saw even less on the G1, even if it is brighter.
So what's up with the G1 having that technology? This doesn't seem like it has any like thickness to add any like extra tech to it. Is it just the chip? Is it
the C1 is like that thin for the top portion of the screen. The G1 is like this all the way around it.
Okay.
It's just the C1 has that
some more
thick
airflow
bottom.
or
Until someone takes it apart and sees if there's anything in there for cooling, I don't know.
yeah.
I wouldn't know either. As far as I know, the C1s, I know that the G1s have some sort of extra processing, just like the A90Js have extra processing for their panels specifically. It's not just the heatsink. It's the XR processor, A80J versus A90J. They're different.
Yep.
Most people don't know that. I'm assuming that the G1 is similar with the C1, so that's why they kind of borked the turn your C1 into a G1 hack that people were using, because there were downsides and implement consequences to doing it that way. So yeah, I'd say there is differences in terms of how the panel's operating.
Yeah.
Like people have seen that.
Oh, here's a question for Classy. You want to answer this one?
Don't bother.
Oh, you already answered them?
No, I didn't answer. I'm answering now. I'm just saying don't unless you have someone who's going to calibrate it for you. Just or you have stuff to do a proper white point calibration. Don't copy settings. I was just showing the difference in that video. So it's something that some people have taken out of context or whatever. I was just showing the difference of what D65 looked like compared to the out of the box white point. But I wasn't recommending people copy the settings or anything like that.
Okay, gotcha.
So as far as copying settings goes, I mean, like basic stuff you can usually get away with. The stuff that's in the user menu typically.
Yeah.
But even then, $40, get the Spears and Munzel disc and do it yourself for your panel. 2-point white balance. If you have the same TV with the same size, the same panel, and everything's the same, you can generally get pretty close copying that. But people who want to copy 20-point, 22-point, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. No.
There's a good article that I'll see if I can pull up in the meantime that actually compared. This was back on an old plasma. They compared DNice's settings with CNET's video settings with the out of the box THX mode, and I'll see if I can find it real quick, and I'll let you guys see kind of what the results were.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I'll post it in chat, or I can share screen too, whatever you guys like. Yeah. But anyways, the moral of the story was out of the box ended up being more accurate.
Yeah, because it's when you have even just typical panel variance and you're shifting those values basically just going from left to right or right to left. And then now it's just more complicated, especially with the C1, because you have 2 different panel types, different white points per panel size. I mean, there could end up being like 8 different values that someone would need to make for each of them. So it's, and then again, there's still panel variants on top of that.
Yeah, and to go even further, like a lot of this stuff with calibrating it yourself, even the stock meters, like the little i1 Display Pro 3s, aren't accurate enough to actually put on the panel and get the white point correct anyways. You're still going to be off. So yeah, I say hire somebody, just like I did. I hired Sammy. So you see me talk to Sammy, talk to him on the streams all the time. I hired him to come out just so he could use his much more expensive equipment just to get my meter set up. So that kind of was me deep diving into this OLED metamerism and wide color gamut stuff. That's what you need to do to really get on track. So you can get a meter, but you need to get a calibrator just to profile it. And if you're going to have them profile it, you might as well have them calibrated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then you've got a profile. You can do everything you want in the future for good. It's great.
Yeah, I would say bare minimum, if you really want to do it yourself, get the i1 Display Pro Plus and I guess the i1 Pro 2 Spectro at bare minimum. But even that is not going to be the same as a professional with the better equipment. And that's why like you should probably just stick to like a 2-point, because it's going to at least pull you in the right direction. Whereas 20 or 22 point, you can end up making it worse, even though the graphs will say that it looks good.
That's a good point. Hey, I'm going to go check on my dog real quick, and then I'll be right back. So you guys can run the chat.
Yeah.
Cool. We can do some, I can share some fun stuff for Classy in chat if you're paying attention.
Okay.
The i1 Pro 2, the Spectro.
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar with Chroma Pure as a calibration software? Yeah,
I've heard of it. I haven't actually looked at it yet.
Yeah, Tom Huffman is basically the creator of that, and he actually has a test versus his colorimetry research CR300. And for reference, Sammy Prescott has the CR250 and the CR100. And he basically posted the results on how accurate they were, how close they were within each other. And we're talking 0.004 decimal points, so 4th decimal point.
Yeah, I was gonna say from what I had seen, the Pro 2 is about like 0.004 off of accurate, and it could be plus or minus. So technically, you could have a 0.008 range.
And there's certification with these, and they get retested to make sure they haven't drifted, things like that.
Yeah.
He's got that one, and even has a link on the 3 meter, which I'll post in chat, which is kind of cool too. But yeah, those meters are very consistent. Like you can use them. If you want that extra bit of accuracy, you're talking, let's start talking $7,000 meters.
Yeah.
Which even as a calibrator, I would be using that more for myself than just for my clients. It's more of a self-want, to be honest.
Yeah, and as Evan's saying, the Sony can be improved upon, yes, but it is out of the box going to be substantially closer, more accurate than like if you're comparing the A80 or A90 to the C1 or G1. So I would, if you're worried about that kind of stuff, go for a Sony. But if you're not worried about it, then LG, especially if you want gaming, or G1 if you want the 5-year warranty, things like that.
Yeah. The Sony's just required grayscale adjustment. You are not able to do CMS like color adjustments on the Sony. And what you'll find with a lot of OLEDs, and I'm sure Sony knows this, is that once you have grayscale properly set up, so if you do like a 22 point or what have you on the Sony, generally everything tracks really, really well. So if you do that in SDR, HDR, Dolby Vision, you don't need to play with the color as much. With an LG, you generally have much, much more capacity to do a very, very thorough calibration, but most people can't do that. So as an amateur calibrator, if you got your hands on a Sony, it'd be much easier to dial that in than it would be an LG.
Yeah, and also I'm gonna finish my G1 review. Then after that, I'm gonna do a 2x2 video. So I'll have the G1 out of the box, the G1 with the 2-point white balance adjustment, and then the Kalman AutoCal Fix 9 color adjustment. And then I'll have the Sony out of the box, and then the Sony with only the 2-point white balance adjustment to show that the Sony's colors pretty much match the calibrated LGs.
Yep. I had a video very similar where I was showing just the service menu adjustment versus color space. And everyone definitely saw a difference on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. And before the G1 left, I also did just a quick, if you have your own stuff, how to go in the service menu, do your 2-point, and pretty much be about there. And I'll do something similar with the Sony, because I actually found with the Sony that doing the service menu white balance, you know, everyone was saying that how Dolby Vision would be off because it has that offset that expects the default white or the default white point. For whatever reason, on mine, with adjusting to denice's white point, like the SDR was just about spot on, the HDR was just about spot on, and the Dolby Vision is just about spot on. There's like very, very minor imbalance between them.
That's what I did for Be the Installer's TV. I just did the white point.
Yeah. KG, you're muted, just so you know.
I am. Thank you. See, I was just like talking the whole time, and I was like, can't hear me.
Man, these guys are talking all over me.
Let's see. What kind of dog do you have? I have a Corgi German Shepherd mix. So it's amazing. Let's see.
Preston, yeah, I've had a 77C1, a 77A80J, then 77G1, now back to 77A80J.
And then Sony announces a 77 A90J and his head explodes.
Yeah. And then Best Buy is going to give you that call. Like, I don't know.
Flagging your account, sir.
No, so I was in Best Buy today getting the refund for the G1, and it actually gave me back more on my card and less in gift cards than what I should have gotten in gift cards and on the card. So whatever.
Well, now I have to report you.
Hey, it's their system. Because I think what happened was, like, they show MasterCard and Visa and gift card amounts, and I think they were supposed to do one of the cards and then the rest in gift cards, but they did refunds to both MasterCard and Visa and then the remaining in gift cards.
Yeah. I wouldn't worry about them flagging you, though. The only way they flag you is if they don't like you. And they're like, they see you and they're like, this guy's shady. And then they'll flag you. But like, if you're just
I brought pictures on my phone of the banding and stuff. So
if you're just like a genuine like guy who buys TVs and stuff, like, they're probably gonna just be like, okay, as long as you're not doing anything shady.
Speaking of banding, let me grab the pictures that I took of the Sony now that I've done the pixel refresher and it's a little more broken in.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to touch on. I met Be the Installer at Best Buy, and if he can get away with the amount of TVs he's returned, Classy's fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, B.
Is that how you met him? Like,
yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
I was actually an asshole to him originally. He was like, "Oh, can I get a discount on all this Sonos stuff?" I was like, "If you're buying it in bulk,
right?"
So I actually passed him off on somebody else. I'm like, I don't want to deal with this guy.
All right. Brad Smith. So the C1, I see more brightness variance in C1 than I do the others, but typically they're low 700s to mid 700s. G1, I would say, is upper 700s to as high as 900, and A80J is right there with the G1.
So I've calibrated a bunch of these recently. So 77 C1. On average, they come in around 750 nits. My 65 is about 740. And the G1 I did last week, calibrated in the most accurate mode, came out at 890 nits. And then with Classy's boost mode hack, it was 975. Or wait, 960. I was like, whew.
Wow.
But it wasn't accurate, so I turned it off.
Let's see. There was a question I missed. Oh yeah, how is the Qn90a for gaming? I plan to play on PS5 and I want something that wows me with HDR. I personally liked the Qn90a. I thought it was really nice for an LCD TV. It's super bright. HDR looked really good. I didn't have any complaints. I thought it was very comparable picture quality wise with the C1. At times the C1 looks better in darker areas and the darker games, of course. Like there's no beating that in a dark room. But brighter games definitely blew me away with the Qn90a. There's some issues with it for sure, but I liked it. I thought it looked good. What you got anything to add on this, Classy?
Just that, I mean, overall, it was great, but in some dark areas, definitely saw that the local dimming wasn't working very well.
Right.
And in really bright highlights, it got confused of how bright they were supposed to be, and you would just see them fluctuate.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. With the dark areas, definitely a lot of crushing. I'd say it crushed just as much details as the C1 did when it was side by side. So, it will if you're on high local dimming, and even then on standard, it still crushes a little bit of detail. So,
See that. I got into a thing with someone about that, and I don't even say that it really crushes it. I say it turns them off. Like if there's a zone that it says, okay, 99% of this zone it should be black, and we just have this little spot of gray, then we're just going to shut it off. So to me, that's not really crushing it. It's just turning it off.
are you talking about it for the C1 or the Qn90a?
No, for the Qn90a, for its
Right.
zones.
Okay.
Like if it has a zone
Okay.
and it's determining there's not enough information in this zone to be worth not turning it off, then it's going to turn it off. And then that's where it comes into you don't see what you can't see.
Right.
So you don't even know that it's doing it unless you have a direct comparison.
So that's definitely fair. I seen this when it was side by side on the C1. When this YouTube video I was watching, there was this gray spot in the corner. I've explained this before, and it's definitely there on the C1. It's supposed to be there. It's just a problem with the picture, but the rest of it's on a black background. But on the Qn90a, you don't see the gray spot at all. Like it's just gone. So I definitely
That's
see
due
what
to
you're
the
saying
black
there.
crush.
Yeah. Well, like Classy was saying, it's just it will completely like understand it
Yeah.
as being black, you know?
Yeah, well, it's not going to devote turning on a zone and risking
Blooming.
not so much blooming, but just overall lightening that area where it's surrounded by pitch black, because it's not going to look perfect. It can't get as granular down that low.
Right.
It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's like people, this guy was saying, there's black adjust or whatever the controls are called, shadow detail and
detail.
shadow detail on the Samsung. And it's like, okay, yeah, that works for when the zone's on. It doesn't do anything to affect its algorithm of turning zones off that has detail in it.
Right. Yeah, and that's the dimming algorithm for the Qn90a. It's very aggressive. Super aggressive. So and it sucks because they added that to the Q90T, and now I'm like, man, why'd they do that? Because I really liked that the way my Q90T looked before the last update, and now it's like the smaller highlights don't pop as much. I think they're probably, if I had to measure them, they'd probably measure lower than they were before. And even Arting's like ratings, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, they measured it post update as well, the Q90T, and they saw that the highlights are lower for the smaller details, so in the 10% window.
So I'm sharing a screen. These are the uniformity pictures of the A80J fresh out of the box, and then after 30-ish hours with a pixel refresh. So here you can see the pink over here. Now the camera doesn't pick it up very well, but you can kind of see pink throughout it, and like if there's a snowy scene or whatever, you can see some pink. So it is. I would say it's moderate pink on this panel. This was the banding out of the box, and then as it got darker, you could see red at the bottom.
Yep.
And then here you can see like the banding is almost gone. The camera is just overexposing the red a little bit, but it got a lot better. And then here's 4%. Like this right here is just too bright from the camera, but you can see like all the banding there. You can see faint lines of where it was, but it's way better. And then here's 10%. You can still see the lines a little bit, but in real content, none of that is visible. And then with the full white, still get a little bit of the pink. Like it doesn't really do much for the pink, but there's really not much you can do about that.
Cool. Let's see. Am I missing any questions? I haven't looked at chat in a long time.
As far as like film grain and stuff on the LG, none of that stuff really, none of the settings, the noise reductions or anything really I've ever seen make a difference. And the LG is just giving you the source as the source comes in. So that's not really taking any of that grain away. Whereas Sony is, if you have the noise reductions turned up or on auto, or if you're in like one of the more cinematic modes, it will try to clear that up.
Cool. Let's see. You guys got anything you want to talk about or mention about your channel coming up?
I got a bunch of stuff I'm doing, but it's just gonna take time.
Yep.
Now that I'm working again, I might be able to do some stuff for the weekends. So I don't want to get too self-promoty, but
Yeah.
I'll have a quick video on, now that I'm doing calibration services again, with hopefully COVID stays lifted, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Just a breakdown of what I'm doing. I find I respond to a lot of emails with a whole laundry list of everything I'm actually doing for you, because most people don't know what they're getting. They're used to a Best Buy coming out and doing 2-point grayscale and then slapping you on the butt, and that's a day. So I'll be uploading a video on all the modes I do, all the different technology, the reports you get, just everything. And then I've got my VT60 at a friend's house that I'm actually going to do a full calibration, and I haven't touched that TV in about 4 years. So just going to go through how to calibrate a plasma. So that'll be fun.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so I had a really busy last few weeks. So I took just a little bit easy, a couple days. I do have a video of just hooking up tons of stuff to the Sony ADJ, using that switch, using a receiver. So I have component cable, green, blue, and red cable devices going to the receiver, going to the TV. Literally all my ports on the TV are used, even all 3 USB ports. So I have a video of just how you can literally hook just about anything up to it. Kind of a silly side video. Also accessories that should go with it. And then, so I have the G1 review I'm working on, and then the comparison between the two. And then I'll do a full A80J review. And then I might pick up that X85J tomorrow. Yeah. And then some other stuff I still have to catch up on. I can't really think of right now.
Cool.
But when you're working, 70-ish hours a week and then doing this on the side, it kind of takes a while. That's why I haven't even opened the Fire Cube yet.
Yeah. I don't know how you do it, man.
I don't either.
Yeah,
You
that's a
must
lot
get
of
home
hours.
and not sleep. Like, I just don't get it.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's why the last week or so, 10 days, was a little bit worse because my boss was off, so I was on call and going in even more. So.
Jim says Deem Nice is a calibration legend. Is he really that good? I don't know. You guys know.
I mean, I've interacted with them a ton, not in person, but I've been on AVS since 2003, so he's been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
All I can say is that he thoroughly knows the ins and outs of every type of tech that's out there. He does basically the most professional job you can think of, and he's kind of like me, where he does it to the proper standards. He does it right, and he actually fully endorses the idea of fixing metamerism with the alternate white points. And anyone that pushes back on him saying, no, you don't need it, he says, yes, you do.
Yeah.
So I really like the guy. I really respect him. Me and him have gone at it a little bit, but honestly, like, I think there's a mutual respect there. So that's good. Yeah, he's
That's
really cool.
Yeah. I see him getting into it in the forums with everybody.
He's just telling them like it is.
Yeah,
If they
yeah.
don't understand, he'll tell them again, and
Yeah.
they still don't understand. He's like, I'm done with you.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I can't think of anyone, putting a bad report or saying they didn't like what they did. Everyone praises his work. So I'm assuming he's going to be at the TV shootout, so I look forward to meeting him there.
Yeah,
I bought my Spectra from him.
Mhm.
Cool. Yeah, he's the Value Electronics new calibrator, right?
Yep.
And QA, QC. Yeah, cool.
He's had a long history with them. Like, I think one of the first times I saw him on camera was at an old Value Electronics shootout, working on some of the TVs. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Cool stuff. Let's see. Any games you guys are looking forward to playing in the future that are coming out, like in the next 2 or 3 months?
Battlefield.
Battlefield.
Wait, when does Battlefield come out? That was like October. Wait, what year is it?
That's a couple months.
I want the remake of Death Stranding because
Okay.
I'm going to play it offline and torture myself, but it looks really good.
Cool.
I really hope the next the Witch Queen expansion for Destiny is a good turnaround point for it. The last couple seasons have been bad.
Yeah.
Well, their problem is they keep vaulting content and they keep trying to shrink the game and push people together into different population pools. And the biggest problem I have, and the reason I kind of stopped playing, like I ran Iron Banner, I ran it for 2 days, unlocked all the bounties, trashed all the armor, I was like done, is they got rid of all the campaign stuff. So just there's no story. It's just week to week.
Yeah.
If you miss the story, you miss the story, and that's just not a business model that I like.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, my problem has been the last year and a half or whatever. If you're not playing every day for many hours a day to reach the so you have a hard cap and then a pinnacle cap and then a unlimited cap, basically. So if you didn't have your power high enough, you couldn't do the real hard end game stuff. And if you weren't playing all the time or playing in groups, especially if you're a solo player or only have a couple people to play with, you just couldn't ever reach that. And then by the time it gets to the end of the season, you're like, okay, I'm finally high enough. I can go do a Legend Lost sector by myself. And then a week later, they reset you and you got to do it again.
Wow.
Or
No,
they
content's
raise
gone.
it. Yeah, they raise the another 50, 60 points. This season, they stopped that, so it only goes up 10 points, whatever. But at this point, I just got burned out because the seasonal activity at this point is basically just reskinning the same thing, doing the same kind of thing over and over, season over season.
It's just dunking orbs. It's annoying. And I just don't have as much time anymore. Back in the day, like I played a ton of it, and I had everything always on top of it. Now, more of a solo player because you can't change your work life, family life schedule to go play with a bunch of 15-year-olds.
See, my problem is from Destiny 1, I have collected every shirt that you could earn.
Oh, no.
So every time they do those events, I get on and I earn the next shirt.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
My closet is full of Destiny shirts that I don't even wear.
Well, once cross plays up, I'm happy to help you out You know,
Oh.
give you a boost, put you in my backpack, classy. I'll help you.
Okay.
We're
Yeah.
talking physical shirts.
Yeah, like sure. So what they do is they'll like 2, 3. Oh, now it's probably like 5 times a year. They'll give you a couple weeks or whatever to do a certain thing in the game or certain event. You complete it, and then it gives you a code. You can go on their website and buy the shirt for that event.
Oh, wow.
But my other problem is most of the content is for 3 players, and we typically have a group of 4, and then that sucks. So then that's why we end up just going to Fortnite to have 4 players, because we don't get 6 to go do raids or stuff. So it's either just play Crucible or the seasonal activity or go play Fortnite at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to start playing some more games. I haven't played too much lately. I've been playing a lot of Gang Beasts. It's pretty fun.
I don't know that one. What is
I
that?
played a little bit. But,
It's like a physics-based game.
yeah, Mrs. Classy knows how to just walk around and headbutt you down and knock you out and throw you off every single time. I can't get the hang of that. My headbutts don't do anything.
Yeah, I
Look,
can't
it's
figure
on
it out
P-
either.
This looks like human fall flat.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
like
little
that.
bit like that, yeah.
Derek,
I liked
yeah.
Fall Guys for a bit.
I didn't play Fall Guys. I was only on PlayStation, right, and PC.
I got a bunch of wins on that, and then it just got boring.
Dang.
I play a lot of Apex. I get a lot of wins on Apex. It's weird. I had a win on stream just the other night, which was really cool.
Oh wow.
But
I
yeah,
used to play
like,
Apex.
as I get older, it's just a lot of pick up and play stuff. So we play a lot of Rainbow Six Siege, and just pick up and play. Nothing where you need a lot of time.
Yeah, that's cool. You play Apex, Classy?
Yeah, from here and there. I got all the achievements in it and stuff on Xbox, and then I just kind of moved on. And then
Cool.
Derek's asking about Forza Horizon. So I am a huge Forza fan. My problem is when the Xbox One came out, I played literally like everything through Horizon 2 and had played literally everything through Motorsport 5 and then Motorsport 6. Kind of got most of the way through, and then Horizon 3 got most of the way through, and they were bringing them out every year, and then I got too far behind, and then like Horizon 4, I've maybe touched 10% of it at this point. It just got too burned out, and with the year-over-year releases.
Yeah, I saw you did a retrospective on your channel. That's pretty dope. I watched that. That was a old video.
Oh yeah,
but I
that was an
watched it,
old
I watched
video.
that. I was like, what's this guy used to get
I
into?
had
here?
to remember what you're talking about. Yeah, I was comparing the graphics of from the first Motorsport up to I think it was 5 or 6.
That was
I
pretty
think
cool.
it was 6. Yeah.
So I put the new firmware in for the LG C1 today, which I didn't really see any updates or changes. One thing that we might want to do a video on once I've done some testing, and this actually might be fun. You're not supposed to give out settings and everything. I'm wondering if I can use my meter and actually give out recommended settings for enabling boost mode and having gamma changes so you can actually mitigate the gamma problem.
Did you try what I did?
Possible. No. What did you do?
So with boost mode, I know I turned the white stabilizer in the game dashboard down 1, and what was the other thing? I did something else. I don't remember if I adjusted. Yeah.
You got to adjust black level because it's definitely. Now here's the other problem, and I got to say this.
Yeah, I think I turned it down 1, and I turned the white down 1, and that made it closer. It's in the video that I did.
It's only messing up 60 hertz. It's not messing up 120.
Right.
Yeah, I find absolutely no different, no effect, nothing at all at 120 because you can't even use boost mode in 120.
That's why I turned it off because I can barely feel a difference, and SDR is much more punchy with it off. But if I can mitigate it, I'm going to be dead serious. I was actually considering doing a full 3-hour calibration with the TV in boosted game mode to see if I could actually just cure the problem with a 3D LUT. But then I realized the 120 was going to get messed up anyways, so I just stopped.
Yeah. Wow.
That's why I said in my video I wish they would give 2 game modes, picture modes.
That'd be nice. That'd be sweet. Game day and game night. That's got to be what the new thing is. But it's just weird because like you can do the BFI and you can put the BFI on high, and the TV mitigates the actual gamma change and the brightness change automatically, but they're not doing the same thing with boost modes. So it's something they just probably haven't tested.
Yeah. Speak on the same subject of that almost. Derek Rogers was asking about the A80J picture quality. Is it worth the loss of VRR on the C1? And even if Sony adds VRR, what are the odds that they are going to use a black stabilizer at launch?
Sorry, I got distracted.
Oh, it's okay.
Apparently, Miss Classy just said a son had the drill and some screws and did something in his room.
Nice. Bunk beds, sweet.
All right, so what's the question?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. That's going to depend on the content that you watch. If you typically just stay with newer content, you're paying attention to the new HBO releases, or you're buying new 4K UHD, and you have very clean sources, the picture quality is super, super, super close. To me, the A80J was worth it for older stuff, stuff that's getting upscaled, or an SDR, or just really grainy and dirty sources. That's where the difference is.
Yeah, I've actually got a lot of people saying that they returned the A80J just because they don't like the way it comes out of black so fast. So that might bother some people, the near black. I personally don't mind that. I don't think it's a big thing. But
I think if anyone's doing that, it's because they're hearing too much talk about stuff that involves after calibration and other issues, and just reading what people say online instead of actually thinking for themselves.
I'm sure there's a lot of overthinking involved with that. But it is a difference, and that's there. And I don't know how much the adding VRR would help with that. You know what I mean? Because you have that black stabilizer with the C1 for VRR, but you won't have that with, say, the A80J or the A90J. So that might be an issue.
Also, Classy, like when you were running Series X with VRR with the G1, because obviously I've had a PlayStation this whole time. I had a Series X for a bit, but it was before I was really doing a lot of stuff with VRR because it was on a C9. Have you noticed issues like with the gamma changes or flashing when using VRR on the G1?
Yeah, so whenever there's a drastic drop in the game's performance, so this is where Sea of Thieves is the prime example of why you need VRR and why VRR sucks at the same time.
That's what I'm just
yeah.
Because the performance on that is so bad, and it's especially in dark areas. So, in Destiny, there was times if I'm standing in a dark area and then I pull up the menu, there's that split second where the frame rate's going to change, so that would cause a little bit of flicker. Or in Call of Duty, if you're at the menu, but in real content, you almost never saw it until Sea of Thieves. And then I saw the flickering, and it was awful. Right. And then Samsung with Qn90a didn't flicker at all.
Right.
So it seems to be an OLED issue with VRR. And that's why I've been saying, I don't care if Sony's saying there's changes in CEC and ER coming, and that's why they're delaying. I think they're sitting there trying to figure out, okay, if we're going to bring VRR, how do we fix this flickering issue? That's what I think they're doing.
Same. And someone's talking about getting an A80J. I would say go for it, because I don't think the VRR consoles is going to be that worth it. Maybe for PC gaming, but I'm going to charge this headset real quick.
Yeah, I think as more games come out later in the generation and the performance starts to dip, and these companies are saying, all right, well, some people are going to have VRR, so let's just go ahead and let the frame rate drop and not worry so much about it. Whatever. I mean, we always see end of generation frame rates get much lower as they're pushing more graphics. That's when I think VRR is going to matter a whole lot more.
And then like games like Mass Effect Remastered, that's 120 unlocked, and that dips from like 120 to 80 all the time, and so VR would be very useful for a game like that. So it's definitely like a game by game basis sort of situation, and you will see it more and more that you will need it later on. But right now, I don't think it's something that is definitely necessary for a console gamer. You can get away without it.
I'm really digging what Ratchet and Clank did with the new fidelity mode. And everyone was all up in arms about, oh man, they increased the frame rate. Like, no. You have an option now.
Right.
You can turn your 120 on or off, and then you can use multiples of 120. to get smoother frames. Just like 24 frames looks smoother in 120 than it would in, say, 60, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's been one of the best implementations. I wish that PS5 would have a fixed 120 hertz mode output similar to the Xbox. Because for me, I think for these game systems, the VRR isn't the biggest issue. I think it's just having locked frame rates at multiples of 120. So I kind of like the direction that Sony went with that. So I'm really not concerned about whether or not the PlayStation 5 gets the VRR update, whether the Sony TVs get the VRR update. Because if it's not working properly, like I'm going to notice that black flashing for sure.
Yeah, and let me share this real quick. I'm actually going to do a video about the whole Ratchet and Clank 40 FPS, why it doesn't work on 60 hertz screens.
Okay.
So I'm going to do a little bit of math here and show you.
Yep. So
You
let
can
me
do
get to
super
this.
chat. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that Spillage Village on the same topic of VRR, he says, does anybody think that Sony VR update comes this year and will it be any good? And that's the big question, right? Like, will it even come this year? Is the big question. And if it does come, it's going to be around December. It looks like that's what it says on the Sony YouTube channel. Bottom left corner of their little preview video. It's like, yep, VR is coming in winter. And that's what I heard from the people at the Value Electronics when they did their stream with FOMO. And it just sounds like that's what they're targeting. Will it be any good? I would imagine it would be decent, but like, is it going to be FreeSync? That really depends. I don't know how compatible it will be with like G-Sync and FreeSync for PC gamers. So a lot of question marks around VR and Sony.
Yeah, the only question is, are they going to cut resolution for VRR like Panasonic did with the same
Right.
chipset?
That's kind of scary
That's the
to
issue
think
that I
about.
have.
Yeah.
Because that same chipset, like I said, it's hardware limited. So not a real answer to that. But on the good side, like I said, I've been running a PS5. I've been playing games at 60, 120. It feels fantastic on an OLED with low input lag. Like VRR for me, yeah, it's great, but it's not a full-on necessity. I think the target with a lot of games running at 120, even if you lose some resolution, I think the 120 mode is always going to feel better than, say, 90 frames per second with a VRR going. But that's just how I feel. I'm not a PC guy.
Right.
I know there's a lot of people that are probably going to be crazy about loving G-Sync and FreeSync with their PC, but I can just talk to the TVs because I've used gaming on a TV.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. You got some here, classy. Share it up.
Yeah, so you saw the Ratchet and Clank fidelity mode. It's 30 FPS. They bumped it to 40 if you have a 120 hertz screen.
Right.
And some people don't understand why they can't have that 40 on a 60 hertz screen.
Why
So
not?
at 60 hertz, a 16 is or 0.016 milliseconds. That means every frame fed to the TV has to fall on a multiple of that. That's why you can go to 30, and then you can go to 20. At 120, it's half that. Then you're at 0.008. Hang on. 0.008. So now you can do any multiple of this. So that's how 40 becomes an option, because you're just doing, that would be 30, and then you can add another 0.008. So 0.025. So hang on, I did the first one wrong. So if we're at 1 second, yeah, there we go. So 3 multiples of 120 is 40 FPS.
Yeah,
You
that's
can't do that on a 60 hertz screen.
It's interesting.
Well, see, you get frame skipping essentially, because you can do 40 frames per second on a 60 hertz panel. It's just going to feel like trash because every third frame is not going to feel right.
Right.
So turning the camera, it's going to go 2 frames then a third, 2 frames then a third. So it's going to look like this in motion. It's not going to look as smooth as the 120.
Yeah, I don't, and does VRR even help with that? I don't know.
So VRR,
It would change the refresh rate of the TV down to 40.
Right.
correct, but you need to have at 40. That's like the bottom end of VRR because
I think FreeSync Premium goes down to 20 or 28 or something like that.
It's
right.
pretty low.
So you look at the multiples of the panel for your headroom for VR because it's basically doing something similar where it's multiplying the frames to keep it. It's basically keeping the frames even. So when you move, it stays smooth.
Yep. So we got another super chat from Afseal. Thank you for the super chat. He says, does the Shield upscale content that is attached to the hard drive? So LG C1 A3-inch, what is the VISA offset distance from side and top of the TV? So top edge of the TV. I think he's talking about the mount offset on the back. It's two questions. So he's asking about the Shield, and then he's asking about...
I think it's just, so for the VESA stuff, I'm pretty sure if you go to Value Electronics that they usually have documents of the VESA mounting for like all the TVs they have.
Yeah.
And as for the Shield, it does regular basic upscaling on everything. It does AI upscaling on supported apps. You just have to see which apps are supported. I'm pretty sure Plex is on that list.
So if you have something hooked up to it with the hard drive, say you're running content off of it, will it upscale the content on the hard drive too?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you have a hard drive and a Shield, you're going to be using Plex. That's the whole purpose of it. So like I have a 12 terabyte drive hooked up to the Shield, and then a Plex account, and all the content that's on there plays. It can play directly through it onto the TV at full quality, or it can stream it to a phone or to you. Like if I give you my, you don't even have to give a login. You can actually add friends to your Plex account so they can watch your stuff. And then like I have another friend that I share with, and I have access to everything that he puts up, and then he has access to whatever I put up. So anywhere you are, you can log into Plex on whatever device and watch your stuff.
That's cool. Didn't know that. Yeah, I gotta look into Plex. Sounds pretty cool. Another super chat from Vamps. He said, any reason 120 hertz is now just becoming the norm on TVs where monitors are moving to 240 hertz standard? I think it's just the consoles, right? The consoles are finally being 120 hertz, and
no, it's more to do. The connection, the HDMI connection versus DisplayPort, and also resolution. So those 240 hertz monitors are mostly 1080p or maybe 1440p.
Right, but I think like what he was asking is just like, why is it just on TVs and not the monitors? Like there's no reason for TVs, resolution. Right? There's no reason for TVs to do it though.
Well,
they're prioritizing resolution, so that takes the bandwidth first, then the frame rate or refresh rate.
Yeah. My plasma from 2012 was 96 hertz. So the 120 thing's been around for a while. TVs have had the 120. The problem is that you couldn't hook computers up to it because the HDMI spec didn't have enough bandwidth because TVs weren't using the DisplayPort connection. So now with HDMI 2.1 or even 2.0, you're starting to get enough bandwidth where you can actually run 120 hertz at 4K. So the TV jumped forward and said, okay, 4K, cool. There's no way to display that content in 120 though, because it's just not a big enough pipe to get from your PC. And now consoles are finally catching up to high-end PCs.
Right.
So that's why.
Yep. Okay, so it's just about not having DisplayPort on the TVs.
And it was never a prioritization because I mean, every person that buys a TV is going to watch TV or a movie.
Right.
Not everyone's going to play a game.
Yep. That makes sense. It'll be interesting to see if we see 120 hertz films anytime soon.
We have, and it looked awful.
Was it
Gemini Man?
Gemini Man was 120 hertz, right? I thought it was just 60, but
it was 60.
It was 120 in theaters, but when it came to disc or whatever, they dropped it to 60. But it was shot at 120.
Yeah, see, I hear mixed reactions on that. Some people love it, some people hate it. So
here's the thing. When you use soap opera effect, it takes away the feeling of it looks too real. You feel like you're there, and it takes away all the believability from it. So when something blows up and explodes in that movie, you feel like you're watching stuff. You feel like you're watching behind the scenes on that movie is the problem.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just the way that we accept content and the way that we're brainwashed to understand that 24 frames is cinematic and 60 hertz is soap opera. But it was just a terrible movie anyways, so they could have picked a much better movie to try this out with.
Well, I mean, even The Hobbit, I walked out of, and that was 48.
Oh, see, that was bad. Yeah, that was so bad, dude. I walked out of that too.
Could you imagine Tenet at the Dolby Vision 60?
Oh man,
that would be freaky.
That would be
awesome.
crazy. Yeah, I actually want to see that.
Yeah, on topic. So with LG, they added that cinematic movement, which is supposed to give you some smoothing without soap opera effect. I disagree. I can see soap opera effect. I think the Sony with smoothness at 1 is less noticeable soap opera effect, although it's still too much for me for 95% of what I would watch. So I can't do any of it.
I personally like it because of the motion resolution increase. When I think soap opera effect, I think for me, it comes down to, do I see artifacts between the frames? And I think that the only thing that trips up the cinematic motion is really like quick pans to new scenes. You'll get a little bit of that. You can see the artifact. But for watching like sitcoms and things like that, or even YouTube, I like it because it doubles your motion resolution. So for me, that's the one reason I keep it on.
And for me, like, I would rather just go BFI. Like, I can put, and especially in SDR, I'll just turn the BFI up to max on the Sony, and I got no problem with that.
Yeah, I think I used BFI at like 1 on the Sony, and then I cranked the other smoothness up 3 or 2. It was pretty good. I'm not too sensitive to soap opera effect. Like if it's artifacting, then I won't use it. But yeah.
Yes, baby, I'm going to make it.
Let's see. Thank you for the super sticker, Brad. Appreciate that. See, any other questions? There was a question here, more of just like content. You guys watching any new movies or shows? Catch the new Stranger Things trailer today. I didn't watch that yet, no. But I did watch Outer Banks season 2, and I loved it. So that was the last one I watched.
I'm gonna watch the new Suicide Squad tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch that.
I thought the trailer looked awful, so I had low expectations. I'm gonna keep those low expectations, even though the reviews have been good, so that way I can maybe be surprised.
It's James Gunn, so I'm hoping for the best. But I just realized Nikki hasn't seen the other two, so I'm gonna look up whether or not she needs to before watching this one. So we'll figure it out.
I don't think you do. I think it's like totally unrelated.
Is it a reboot? If it's a reboot, then
it's a reboot, but they brought back like Margot Robbie and some of the characters are the same. So.
Nice. Okay, then we're definitely watching it.
Yeah.
If I had to recommend anything to any of you guys that are watching or anything like that, is it's going to sound really crazy and it'll probably never work, but Twin Peaks season 3. I don't know if Classy's seen it. I don't know if KG's seen it. But that is probably one of the biggest mind trips you're going to ever watch on TV. It's 18 episodes, pure David Lynch, and it's just fantastic. Like it's a masterpiece.
So do you have to watch season 1 and 2 first?
You don't.
Okay.
You can, and there's a lot of stuff in there for the fans. It helps if you watch like a recap on YouTube, I guess.
Okay.
But as of right now, I think you can only find it on Showtime.
Gotcha.
So you have to get like Showtime Now or whatever as an app.
Dang, I didn't know that was an app.
But it's an app.
Yeah, that's cool.
I have it only for that show.
Did you see Dexter's coming back?
I've seen that.
Yeah. T-Dub Pinoy, A80J and G1 if they're the same price. If you want the gaming features and warranty, G1. It would be really hard even if you didn't want those, just to say G1 if they're the same price. Unless you're like me and you have a lot of old content that you want to look better, then that would be a reason to get the A80J. Otherwise, the G1 is a better overall TV.
Yep. Cool. All right, let's go for about like 15 more minutes or so, and then we'll wrap it up. It's been a long stream, but yeah, I definitely want to make sure everybody gets their point across. Anything you guys want to talk about? Just any topics you got in mind that you want to bring up? Something that's been bothering you that you've seen on the forums? Anything like that?
Bothering me on the forums.
Just some trolls that say no. So I've been called a Sony fanboy. Now I'm being called an LG fanboy. I'm told that I went easy on the Qned review.
Well, I mean, what's new, right? I get called a Sony fanboy every day and an LG fanboy every day, and I don't get it. And last year I got called a Samsung fanboy. So
Yeah, and all I've found out is you can't say a single negative thing about a Samsung, or they come out of the woodwork.
There's a lot of owners for Samsung. That's
yeah,
the issue.
dude, it's like Sony. It's like Sony PS5. It's like you say anything bad about Sony PlayStation.
Yeah, I thought PlayStation fans were the worst until these Samsung ones.
I had a client in one of the richer parts of San Diego that wanted the Infinity Edge Samsung from last year. So I guess it was the 8K. So I think it was the 900T or the 900, not the TS, but the T. And I basically did their entire network system, distributed audio system. It was like a $70,000 set.
Wow.
And come to be, it was supposed to be an 85-inch, and we come down to it, and we don't have that Samsung, and we had a Sony. And I actually got their hands on a 950G 85-inch, which is killer TV,
right,
for a killer price. I did not tell them it was a Sony because they were so vehement on getting a Samsung that a couple weeks later down the line, during the rest of the installation, they said, "Hey, is this a Samsung or a Sony?" I'm like, "Oh, it's a Sony. Like, it's gorgeous." I'm like, done. So like, I think it just comes down to like, you got to have the stuff in your home. Like, I almost bought the Sony A80J for the very reasons we talked about on stream, not needing the VRR. The only reason I own the LG at this point is for calibration purposes and just self-training. Like, if I wasn't calibrating TVs and doing this stuff, I would buy the A80J in a heartbeat.
right.
That's just who I am. So people call me an LG fanboy. No, it's just necessary. It's the same reason Classy's looking at the 48-inch LG versus the 48-inch Sony, because they have that A9S. You could just get one of those.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it from that angle. It's definitely a bigger audience with LG right now.
With LG, yeah.
Yeah, like you have
I
more
can see
clients that way.
Well, they sold like crazy due to the whole gaming push last year.
Yeah.
Like, we'd have an inventory of like 500 CXs. That's just one panel size in our main warehouse for Best Buy back last holiday. That's why the C1s and everything got pushed back so far, as we had just overstock at Best Buy, just so much inventory to sell through. It was nuts.
Yeah, so if Sony brings out the VRR and it doesn't cut resolution, does everything we want it to do, are you going to start changing the recommendation of all, Xbox and PC gamers should just go LG, specifically for the Dolby Vision? Or so far, because we're not seeing anything really with Dolby Vision, like for gaming anyway, to be worth it, would you start then recommending the Sony more?
Yeah, that's tough. I guess it really depends. Like you said, let's say it all is implemented correctly and it's just all going to be great. You kind of got to give the edge to the Sony a little bit because of the picture quality. I just think when it comes down to it, it's clear. And when I had them side by side, the picture quality was better on the Sony. And there was no denying that. Like, I had them side by side and my eyes told me the Sony was better. And if you watch the video, you can see that it's clear and there's less black crush. And overall, it's probably the better picture quality TV. Just comes down to all the ports and everything, right? Like, comes down to the VR, like you mentioned. It comes down to Dolby Vision gaming. Are they going to add a Dolby Vision game mode? Because if they don't, that's dead. Like, Dolby Vision, they might as well not have Dolby Vision gaming if they don't add a game mode for Dolby Vision gaming.
So yeah, I don't even think it's worth it though on the Sony, because we know they're not going to be able to do Dolby Vision 120. because you already have to make that sacrifice.
Right.
So I'm already going to have my Xbox at 120 anyway. So I don't, at this point, I don't care. But you're a good example because you had the TVs, you adjusted settings, but they weren't calibrated. So you had to deal with the LG with its black crush or near black crush. And then you had the slightly lifted blacks on the A80J, but you still prefer the look of the Sony.
Yeah. And I'll say this, the LG C1, I didn't even like hate the black crush. It never made me say like, oh, I wish it didn't have this black crush. Honestly, it sometimes even looked better than the A80J in those darker scenes with the black crush, just because it comes out of, black slower, and it sometimes has a better atmospheric look to it. It just depends on what you're playing. So I didn't mind the black crush at all.
So here's the thing, it's great and all, but no matter what Sony does, they're not going to be able to compete this year. If they have a new model next year, maybe they do a gaming focused model or something, because that's similar to what like the 900H was, is let's make more of a gaming centric version. So if they did something that was not like a master panel, didn't have the heat sink, let's call it an A80J with their own in-house SoC, 4 HDMI inputs, and all the Dolby Vision gaming, G-Sync, FreeSync, all that stuff, and then reserve their master panel for the people that are looking for like movies and paying that premium. Then they've got a way to compete with LG and also still beat them at their own game. But this year, they can't compete with any firmware that comes out. They're still not going to compete. And that's the long and short of it. They only have the 2 HDMI inputs, and one of them's your eARC. So for me, personally, they have to come out with something new.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I got that Switch, so I have my Xbox and PS5 hooked up to port 4. I mean, there's workarounds. I just think for most people, if they got the VRR at least, and it was right, I think most people would prefer the out-of-the-box look, and be willing to sacrifice the 8 milliseconds of input lag or whatever it is. Or is it 8? Or no, at 120, it's only like 4 milliseconds.
Yeah,
so,
it's only like 4.
Yeah. It's called 5 to 6 milliseconds, which you can barely even feel.
I think
unless you're talking in double digits, you're not going to really feel the difference.
Yeah. And I think it would be like a disservice if we didn't mention Game Optimizer, because it is very useful, and it will come in handy. And this is something that if you're a Call of Duty player, man, you're going to really love this Game Optimizer, because you can just raise up those hiding spots where you can't see, and Game Optimizer is perfect for that. So you can have a setting where you can switch to that whenever you just play Call of Duty and not mess up your whole entire picture quality with that.
Pretty sweet.
So it is sweet. It is something that I hope is added to other TVs, because that's very innovative. And I like that LG is innovating. And at the same time, man, like, can you trust Sony with gaming and TVs? Like, I can't, because what they did last year with the 900H was a travesty, and they still don't have VRR. So it's like, I don't think they're gonna add Dolby Vision gaming game mode. So I have a hard time with Sony in gaming.
The way that chip works and the way the bandwidth works, there's a reason why you can't do like the FreeSync or the VRR with Dolby Vision, is because they're literally occupying the same space, like the same pins. So it's literally impossible. It's another reason why it's hard to get the eARC with Dolby Vision, all this other stuff working. So it's a pain in the butt. So if you were doing 60 hertz or 120 hertz gaming with the PS5, you can buy the Sony OLED this year with pure confidence, because it's going to look fantastic.
Yeah. And I'll say on Nintendo Switch, like, upscales tremendously on that Sony A80J and A90J. That's
one thing I'm really jealous. I've been playing, honestly, the last few days, I've been playing nothing but the Switch. I'm not going to lie. I haven't touched my PS5 in a few days now.
It's cool. What game are you playing?
The ones I mentioned earlier. So Celeste, Ori, Dead Cells, Hades, Binding of Isaac. I've got thousands of hours on Binding of Isaac, trying to complete it.
Nice.
So a bunch.
I got to try Hades. I actually recently bought it for the Switch, so I can't wait to play that. I also bought the Zelda remake, Skyward Sword.
Oh, you got Skyward? Did you get the Link to the Past remake? Not Link to the Past, the, what's it called? Oh my gosh.
The chibi one?
The chibi one.
Yeah, I played. That's really good.
I think I like that one better than Skyward Sword. I couldn't deal with
Okay.
whole motion stuff with the left to right and up and down stuff. But
Well, you don't have to use the motion on Skyward Sword anymore, so.
I know, but it's $60.
That's true. That's true.
It's Nintendo tax.
Yep,
It's
it is
no
Nintendo
good.
tax. Yeah. Can't argue with that.
E-Rock, we brought it up earlier, but as far as the bending goes, like I'm gonna look into to see if it's PS5 versus Series X or Xbox dependent, because on the Xbox, on the A80J, the C1, the G1, I saw the banding all the same, whether it was in PC mode, regular mode, whatever. The only thing that I saw help it was on the Sony. If you were in Dolby Vision, even there's no game mode, but Dolby Vision has dithering and it's in the cinematic mode, so of course that seems like it would clear it up. The Dolby Vision gaming on LG did nothing to help it, and also on the Sony you get the smooth gradation that actually works. And I said earlier, if you go to high, you lose too much detail. It's not worth it. But at medium, I didn't really see any loss in detail in game, so I would just use medium on the Sony, and it's a pretty good option. On the LG, the smooth gradation doesn't work in game mode. But a lot of people, and Matt has said on the PlayStation with the LG, if you put it in PC mode, then the banding goes away. So that's why I want to look at the same games on the PS5 and the Xbox and see if there's a difference.
Really easy way to tell, and I know I talked to you about this on the phone or whatnot, is load up a game that does 120 HDR, so Ratchet and Clank, Doom Eternal, what have you. Go back to the dashboard under your video settings, and you know how there's that like heavenly light from PlayStation that kind of like shimmers across the gray screen. If you're in non-PC mode, you'll see the color banding all throughout that background. When you turn PC mode off or on, I'm sorry, it's perfectly smooth. With your Xbox, Classy, have you tried? Is your YCBCR the 422 checked, unchecked? Have you gone back and forth with that yet? Or
I've messed with that. I've messed with 8-bit, 10-bit, 12-bit settings. I've messed with all of it. Nothing on the Xbox, especially at 120, really made any difference. Again, at 60, it's really hard to see in the first place, but it's still there. Even on the KS8000, even on other TVs. So that's why I said I think there's just something either Xbox side or the game side where the banding's just there.
Because it does 40 gigabits per second. So my question is that enough bandwidth to do 444 120 if it's trying to keep it in RGB? Because when you do 422, it's technically a 12-bit output. And the TV has to do less conversion, which is generally similar to what PC mode's doing. So play with that and the bitrate and see if it fixes it. I'm going to research it too.
It's a good point.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to wait until I get the next LG. I got to get the X85J Q90a stuff done first before I can get the replacement, the C1 or G1, whichever I get.
Just put a TV on every wall.
Yeah. If anybody's got a C9, they could test that and see if that even makes a difference.
I've got
the Xbox is also 40.
It's capped.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the PlayStation's 32.
Yeah. That's weird.
I wonder, I know people talked about this. I'm wondering if that's a software limitation or a hardware limitation. From what I was told is that the PlayStation works really well with the older receivers, like the Denons and the stuff that had the 8K input, due to that bandwidth limitation. So I'm wondering if it's by design.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Vincent showed before that the Xbox does do 4K 120 HDR 444.
Yep.
That I'm telling you, I'm thinking that's the issue. I'm thinking whatever it's doing with the bit rate, even though it's trying to force 444, it might be going down to 8-bit to make sure it fits within that 40 gigabit bandwidth. So if there's a way to force the 422 out rather than RGB, because that's what PlayStation does with 120. It's always limited range. It's 422. That might be what's going on.
Yep.
Or try limited. I run limited on everything.
Well, the Xbox I always have limited. And I, like I said, I did toggle the 422 and I did toggle the bit rate and like I said, switch between Dolby Vision and HDR. It was just clearly visible no matter what. And that's why, like I said, the Sony's saving grace there is that the smooth gradation actually works.
Yeah. Yeah, it does actually work. And I tried the smooth gradation on the LG, and it didn't work at all. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't. It didn't do anything.
So what's odd
it
is
works.
if you
It works
have
outside of game mode, but in game mode, it didn't do anything.
Yeah. So if you have the Xbox, you have ALM on, the LG is going to lock out all those clarity settings except for sharpness.
Mm-hmm.
If you turn ALM off, then the settings are adjustable, but they do nothing.
Okay.
So at a TV level in game mode, all that stuff is disabled, even though it's adjustable. I just think that there's some kind of bug with it where it ungrays it with ALM turned off.
Real quick, this question was it said don't buy an OLED for a bright room, but how do you define a bright room? What's your strategy method to know if your room is too bright? I've been considering the A80J. I'll say direct sunlight is the biggest factor. Like, do you have direct sunlight hitting your TV? Also, lights above or around your TV, if they're going to be in the frame of your TV, is that going to be an issue? Because there's a lot about that.
I gave a nice example of what I consider a bright room.
Okay.
See, and my problem though is, even there, I wouldn't want to watch a TV in that room, even if it's a Qn90a. It wouldn't do any different. So
that's
to me,
what it comes down
I don't
to.
get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like my window right there faces the TV. Doesn't matter. Qn90a, A80J, no TV. Can I have that curtain open during the day? Nothing.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, so that's, Samsung makes what's called their Terrace series, which are literally designated as outdoor TVs.
Mm-hmm.
So when I consider bright room, I literally think you have no way to stop sun from coming into the room, so you don't have any curtains.
Right.
If you don't have curtains and you get direct light flow into the room, that's what I consider a bright room. Yeah. It's a room that you feel like, oh man, it's really bright in here. But outside of that, the OLEDs get plenty bright.
Right.
Like my plasma from, full screen brightness is on the plasma. It's like 40 to 50 nits.
Mm-hmm.
People use that tech for forever.
All right, KG, I got to get going.
All right. Yeah, we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I might get some dinner too.
Yeah, I'm hungry. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming through. Thanks, Matt, for coming by. Classy for coming by. This is fun. Yep. This was a lot of fun. So thanks.
Yeah, we're the gamers, I feel, so it's nice to have us all here.
Oh yeah, for sure. We'll do this again. You got anything to promote before you
go? Classic?
Not really. Like I said, I'm gonna have just a couple little videos over the weekend, probably. Nothing meaty until maybe next weekend.
This is really nerdy, but I'm gonna try and set up a stream with Sammy and Classy, and we're gonna go through color space.
Sweet.
So actually in depth, which most people have been really wanting, I found out that currently there's only about 20,000 color space users out there. So compared to Kalman, it's a very big difference, but I want to go through it because I think it's a fantastic product and I want it to have more exposure. So cool. Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks again, guys, for stopping by. Make sure you hit the like button if you haven't already. Helps out. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this experience, and subscribe to all the channels. Ninjician AV, Classy Tech, Keep It Classy Tech, and Tech with KG. See you guys next week.
All right. Yep. Thanks. See you later.